The story of movement begins in stillness, beneath the calm surface of your resting body. Even in sleep, this structure continues its quiet work, bones aligning, muscles balancing, connective tissues holding and yielding in perfect harmony. Rheumatology, though often thought of as the study of pain or stiffness, is in truth the study of this deep harmony, the science of the materials that allow life to move with grace. If one were to imagine the human body as a city, then the skeleton would be its framework of bridges and towers, the muscles, its pulsing engines, and the connective tissues, the cables and tendrils linking it all together. Each part depends on the others. The muscles may provide motion, but without the firm foundation of bone, they would have nowhere to anchor. The bones may lend structure, but without the smooth coordination of joints, they would remain rigid and unyielding. Between them lies a delicate balance, maintained by tendons, ligaments, and the fluid systems that nourish every cell. In the realm of rheumatology, scientists and physicians turn their attention to this intricate interplay. The word itself traces back to the Greek rheuma, meaning a flow or stream. It evokes the image of energy and motion passing through the body, much like a current in a river. That image is fitting, for the body's systems are not static. They flow together in a living rhythm, constantly adjusting to keep the organism whole. Rheumatology, then, is not simply about joints and bones. It is about the way these living structures respond to pressure, adapt to time, and endure through change. Movement is often taken for granted. A simple act, lifting an arm, bending a knee, seems effortless. Yet behind each of these gestures lies a precise choreography of microscopic and macroscopic processes. Nerves fire in synchronized patterns. Muscles shorten and lengthen in fluid sequence. Joints glide against one another with the help of synovial fluid, a clear liquid that reduces friction so that bone does not grind against bone. Each layer, from molecule to tissue to organ, participates in this unspoken agreement to maintain motion without harm. When that agreement falters, when inflammation arises or tissue begins to degenerate, the study of rheumatology begins to uncover why. Imagine for a moment the surface of a calm lake at dawn. Beneath the reflection of clouds and sky lies a world in motion. Tiny currents swirl, fish drift between reeds, light filters through water to touch the stones below. The musculoskeletal system behaves much the same way. On the outside, a simple stretch or step may appear smooth and controlled. But beneath the skin is an orchestra of subtle movements, the sliding of muscle fibers, the gliding of tendons within their sheaths, the gentle shifting of bone surfaces that meet in the joints. Even at rest, these tissues remain alive with microscopic motion, constantly renewing themselves. Bone itself is far from inert. Within its mineral shell resides a living community of cells, osteoblasts that build, osteoclasts that dissolve, and osteocytes that communicate through tiny channels as though whispering messages through stone. This constant remodeling allows bone to remain strong yet flexible, capable of healing after injury and adapting to the forces placed upon it. In this way, the skeleton behaves less like a statue and more like a forest, growing, shedding, and reforming over time. Muscles, too, are dynamic landscapes. Each fiber within them is filled with fine threads known as actin and myosin, which slide past one another in a precise mechanical rhythm to create contraction. The control of this rhythm stems from electrical impulses originating in the nervous system, traveling along long cellular highways until they reach the muscle's motor end plate. There, chemistry takes over, converting electrical energy into movement. The result of this microscopic choreography is something we perceive as a simple action: grasping an object, turning the head, or taking a step forward. Between the muscles and bones lies a network of connective tissues, each with a specialized role. Tendons anchor muscles to bones, transmitting force. Ligaments connect bones to one another, maintaining stability. Fascia, a thin sheet of connective tissue, wraps around muscles and organs like a silken web, separating yet connecting all parts of the body. Collagen, the primary structural protein in these tissues. In its helical structure, collagen embodies one of nature's quiet masterpieces, a form both supple and enduring, able to bend without breaking. When all these elements cooperate, the result is balance, a word that in medicine holds as much importance as in philosophy. Balance is the equilibrium between flexibility and firmness, between motion and rest, between the energy we expend and the energy we conserve. The science of rheumatology seeks to understand what happens when this balance is lost. Perhaps an immune cell misidentifies a piece of joint tissue as foreign and launches an inflammatory attack. In each case, the smooth flow of the body's architecture is disturbed, and what was once effortless begins to feel restrained. Yet, even in the study of disease, rheumatology reveals something profoundly human: the body's enduring desire to repair itself. Inflammation, though painful, is in essence a cry for restoration. It summons immune cells to clear debris, encourages new tissue to grow, and attempts to restore homeostasis. The challenge, then, lies in guiding this response, allowing it to heal without letting it harm. This is the quiet art behind the science. If you picture the human body as a grand instrument, rheumatology might be thought of as the discipline devoted to keeping its strings in tune. Every tendon is a chord, every muscle a vibration, every joint a hinge that allows harmony. When one part is overstressed, the resonance changes. The body compensates in subtle ways: an altered gait, a shifted posture, a tension carried silently for years. These small adjustments ripple through the entire system until they manifest as discomfort or fatigue. In recognizing these patterns, rheumatology listens to the music of movement and learns where the melody has faltered. Even the stillness of sleep depends on this system. As you lie resting, muscles continue to maintain tone, preventing collapse. Joints remain lubricated, responding gently to the body's micro-movements. The heart, a specialized muscle, beats with steady rhythm, circulating nutrients that nourish connective tissues throughout the night. While consciousness fades, the cellular conversations continue. Proteins are synthesized, damaged fibers repaired, minerals reabsorbed and redistributed. Darkness. Your body quietly rebuilds itself, honoring the endless cycle of motion and rest that defines life. In this way, rheumatology touches not only the physical, but also the philosophical. To move is to live. To be unable to move freely is to feel one's vitality diminished. The study of movement, therefore, becomes a study of living itself, of how life maintains order within constant change. Each joint, each muscle, each thread of connective tissue participates in this story of resilience. The quiet architecture of movement reminds us that the body is not a collection of separate parts, but a single, harmonious whole. It is a network of cooperation, guided by patterns refined through evolution and sustained through care. Understanding it gently, patiently, offers a kind of reverence for the design of our own being. And as we begin this exploration of rheumatology, we start not with pain or pathology, but with appreciation for the silent strength within us, for the invisible currents that let us rise, reach, and move through the world with grace. In the following part, we will drift further into this landscape, examining the meaning and scope of rheumatology itself, tracing its history, and observing how it bridges the sciences of structure, motion, and immunity. For now, you might simply rest in the awareness that even in stillness, your body moves in quiet harmony, sustained by an ancient architecture built for endurance and balance. 2. The essence of rheumatology. To understand the essence of rheumatology is to enter a realm where structure and function meet, where the solid frameworks of anatomy blend with the fluid responses of the immune system. It is a branch of medicine that studies not merely bones or muscles in isolation, but the connective fabric that unites them. The ligaments, tendons, cartilage, and synovial membranes that make movement possible and pain, at times, inevitable. Rheumatology is, in a sense, the language through which the body communicates its discomfort, and the science devoted to interpreting that language with patience and care. The word itself has ancient roots derived from the Greek rheuma, meaning that which flows. Early physicians used the term to describe the mysterious currents of pain that seem to move through the body without visible cause. They imagined these aches as fluids that drifted between tissues, migrating from joint to joint, changing shape but never disappearing. Though this idea no longer holds scientific weight, the imagery endures. For even in modern understanding, rheumatologic disease often behaves like a shifting current. Its symptoms wax and wane, its nature fluid rather than fixed. Modern rheumatology stands at the crossroads of several scientific disciplines. It draws upon anatomy to understand form, physiology to grasp function, immunology to reveal defense, and biochemistry to study the molecular messengers that mediate inflammation. It is both structural and systemic, both mechanical and chemical. The physician who practices it must see the patient as more than a collection of joints or swollen tissues. They must perceive the larger story being told by the body, the interplay of genes, environment, and time. At its heart, rheumatology concerns itself with the connective tissues that hold the human body together. These tissues form the framework of our physical existence. Collagen, the most abundant protein in the body, weaves through muscles, skin, tendons, and organs alike, providing both strength and flexibility. Elastin gives these tissues the capacity to stretch and return to shape. When functioning properly, this network is seamless and strong, but when the immune system begins to mistake its own connective tissues for intruders, or when wear and stress erode the delicate balance between formation and repair, the results can be painful and profound. Rheumatology is the science devoted to understanding that imbalance and guiding it back toward equilibrium. In the early days of medicine, disorders of the joints were lumped together under the broad term rheumatism. This catch-all phrase described everything from gout and arthritis to muscle stiffness after hard labor. Physicians of the 18th and 19th centuries recognized that these conditions varied in presentation but could not yet explain why. It wasn't until the 20th century that the field began to separate into distinct branches, each with its own underlying cause: autoimmune, metabolic, degenerative, or inflammatory. The birth of modern rheumatology coincided with discoveries in immunology, when researchers realized that the immune system, designed to protect, could also turn upon the self. Autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and scleroderma revealed that the immune system could mistake the body's own tissues for foreign invaders. Instead of defending, it attacked. This revelation transformed the way physicians understood pain and swelling. Inflammation was no longer seen as mere irritation, but as an expression of immune imbalance. The swollen joint, the warm skin, the aching stiffness, all became signs of an immune orchestra playing out of tune. Rheumatology thus evolved into a discipline that listens closely to this internal symphony, seeking ways to restore harmony without silencing the body's natural rhythms of defense and repair. Yet rheumatology does not focus solely on immune dysfunction. It also studies mechanical wear, the inevitable friction of life lived through decades of motion. Osteoarthritis, the slow thinning of cartilage and the remodeling of bone, is as much a rheumatologic concern as the more inflammatory diseases. In osteoarthritis, time and use gradually erode the soft padding between bones, reducing the smooth glide of the joints. The process is not sudden, but cumulative, a whisper of change, repeated over millions of movements. To understand this quiet wearing down is to see the intersection of biology and biography, the story of a body shaped by its habits, its labors, and its years. Rheumatology also embraces the study of pain itself, not only as a symptom, but as a biological phenomenon worthy of its own contemplation. Pain in the joints and muscles is rarely confined to one place. It radiates, migrates, and sometimes lingers even after inflammation subsides. This is because pain is not simply a message of damage. It is a pattern of perception. The brain, nerves, and immune cells communicate continuously, and in some rheumatic diseases, this conversation becomes distorted. The nerves may amplify their signals, the immune cells may exaggerate their responses, and the mind may interpret mild discomfort as a deeper ache. Understanding these subtle miscommunications helps physicians treat the person as a whole rather than merely addressing the site of pain. Rheumatology views the human body as a dynamic landscape, one that changes from moment to moment under the influence of immune cells, hormones, nutrition, and environment. The field acknowledges that health is not the absence of activity, but the balanced coordination of countless forces. Every joint is an ecosystem. Every muscle, a field of energy. Every connective tissue, a bridge between the two. When inflammation arises, it can be seen as both a storm and a cleansing rain. A response meant to heal but capable of harm if it persists unchecked. The science of rheumatology is also, in many ways, the science of time. Some diseases emerge quickly, like a sudden tide that floods the joints with inflammation. Others unfold slowly, their progress measured not in days, but in decades. The physician must learn to recognize the early signs, the morning stiffness, the subtle swelling of fingers, the fatigue that lingers after rest. Diagnosis often relies on patterns observed across time rather than isolated events. It is a discipline that values patience, observation, and the understanding that healing rarely happens in haste. The tools of the rheumatologist are as diverse as the conditions they study. Laboratory tests may reveal antibodies, the molecular signatures of immune misdirection. Imaging techniques, X-rays, ultrasounds, and MRI scans may show changes in bone density or the loss of cartilage. Yet beyond these tools lies the art of listening, the history of a patient's pain, the rhythm of their fatigue, the small details of daily life all contribute to the understanding of what the body is trying to say. This quiet form of diagnosis requires empathy as much as knowledge. In many ways, it reflects the discipline's deeper truth, that the science of movement is inseparable from the experience of being human. To study rheumatology is to study resilience. Despite its focus on disorders, the field reveals again and again the remarkable capacity of the body to endure and repair. Damaged tissues can rebuild. Inflamed joints can recover flexibility. The immune system, once calmed, can return to its protective role. Treatments, ranging from gentle physical therapy to advanced biologic medications, are all directed toward restoring balance, reminding the body of its natural rhythm of healing. This principle, that the body seeks equilibrium, underlies much of modern rheumatologic care. There is also a philosophical elegance to the field. It invites reflection on how intimately structure and function are intertwined. The strength of a tendon depends on the alignment of its collagen fibers, just as the stability of a joint depends on the tension of its surrounding muscles. Similarly, emotional and physical well-being are often connected. Chronic pain can influence mood, and stress can amplify inflammation. The science, therefore, cannot be fully separated from the person. Rheumatology becomes not just the study of tissues, but the study of how life moves through those tissues, how emotion, thought, and biology coexist in a single, moving form. In the gentle rhythm of life, every movement tells a story of balance. The ability to stretch, to reach, to walk, and to rest without pain reflects a harmony between systems that most of us never consciously notice. Rheumatology seeks to preserve that harmony, to understand when it falters, and to restore it when possible. It is a science of flow of motion maintained through care, of equilibrium rediscovered through understanding. As we drift deeper into this exploration, The next part will guide us toward the foundations that make such motion possible: the skeleton beneath, the quiet architecture that supports the dance of muscles and joints. But before we move forward, it is worth pausing here to feel gratitude for the invisible strength that holds us upright, for the unseen science that studies it, and for the quiet persistence of the human body, ever striving to keep its balance through the long journey of life. 3. The skeleton beneath, foundations of support. Beneath the living softness of flesh and skin, beneath the pulse of blood and the tension of muscle, lies a structure of remarkable quiet strength. It is a framework both ancient and alive, a hidden architecture upon which the body's form depends. This is the skeleton, the silent partner of every movement, the scaffold that upholds our shape, and the stage upon which the story of motion unfolds. Though it is often imagined as something rigid or inert, the skeleton is, in truth, a living system, dynamic and responsive, changing continuously throughout our lives. To understand rheumatology, one must first appreciate this foundation. For every joint, muscle, and connective tissue depends upon the bones that give the body its enduring form. From the first weeks of embryonic life, the skeleton begins as a soft and pliable lattice of cartilage. Over time, this cartilage is gradually replaced by bone through a process called ossification. Cells known as osteoblasts deposit minerals, mainly calcium and phosphate, into a matrix of collagen fibers, transforming what was once flexible into something both firm and resilient. Even in adulthood, this transformation never truly ceases. Bone is not a finished product but a living tissue, constantly renewing itself in response to the pressures and demands placed upon it. Each step you take, each breath you draw, subtly reshapes the skeleton, strengthening the areas that bear weight and trimming away the areas that remain unused. A typical adult skeleton contains 206 bones, though the number can vary slightly from person to person. These bones are connected by joints and stabilized by ligaments, forming a complete internal framework. Some bones serve primarily to protect, like the skull, which guards the brain, or the rib cage, which shields the heart and lungs. Others act as levers, amplifying the pull of muscles to produce motion. Together, they create a harmonious balance between rigidity and flexibility, between defense and movement. Bone itself is a composite material, one of nature's most elegant designs. It consists of both mineral and organic components, intertwined so that the structure is light yet strong. The mineral portion, primarily calcium phosphate in the form of hydroxyapatite crystals, gives bone its hardness. The organic portion, composed largely of collagen fibers, provides elasticity and resilience. Without minerals, bone would bend like rubber. Without collagen, it would shatter like glass. The perfection of their union allows bone to absorb shocks, to bear great loads, and to heal when broken. Within the dense outer layer known as cortical bone lies the lighter, honeycombed structure of cancellous or spongy bone. This inner network, though delicate in appearance, lies bone marrow, a soft, vital tissue responsible for producing blood cells. Here, stem cells divide and differentiate into red cells that carry oxygen, white cells that defend against infection, and platelets that aid in clotting. In this way, the skeleton serves not only as structure but as sanctuary, a cradle for the constant renewal of life itself. The living cells within bone carry out a continuous cycle of construction and deconstruction. Osteoblasts build, osteoclasts break down, and osteocytes, the mature bone cells, coordinate this delicate balance. The process is known as bone remodeling, and it ensures that the skeleton remains strong and responsive to stress. When a bone is injured, the surrounding cells immediately begin repair. New tissue forms, minerals are deposited, and over weeks and months, the bone reshapes itself to its original form. It is a quiet miracle of regeneration, repeated countless times throughout life. The skeleton is not uniform in its design. Each bone, from the smallest ossicle in the ear to the great femur of the thigh, is crafted for a specific purpose. The spine, composed of 33 vertebrae, forms a flexible column that protects the spinal cord while allowing bending and rotation. The vertebrae interlock through small joints and cushioning discs, balancing strength with mobility. The rib cage expands and contracts with every breath, while the pelvis distributes weight from the spine to the legs, forming a bridge between upper and lower body. The limbs, with their long bones and hinge-like joints, transform muscular contraction into graceful motion. The joints, where bones meet, are the pivotal points of this design. Some, like those in the skull, are immovable, their seams fused to create protection. Others, such as the vertebral joints, allow only slight motion, contributing to stability. But it is the freely movable synovial joints, those of the shoulders, hips, knees, and fingers, that define the essence of motion. Within each synovial joint, a thin layer of cartilage covers the bone surfaces, acting as a cushion and reducing friction. The joint is enclosed in a capsule lined by the synovial membrane, which secretes a lubricating fluid. This fluid nourishes the cartilage and ensures that the movement of bone against bone is smooth and silent. When disease disrupts this balance, when cartilage erodes or fluid becomes inflamed, pain and stiffness arise, signals that the harmony of structure and function has been disturbed. In rheumatology, the skeleton serves as both foundation and frontier. Many rheumatic diseases manifest where bone and soft tissue meet. In rheumatoid arthritis, for instance, the immune system attacks the synovial lining, leading to inflammation that gradually damages both cartilage and bone. In osteoporosis, the equilibrium between bone-building and bone-resorbing cells shifts, and the bones become porous and fragile. In conditions like ankylosing spondylitis, inflammation at the joints of the spine leads to abnormal bone formation, gradually fusing the vertebrae and reducing flexibility. Each of these disorders reveals how closely the skeleton's health is tied to the body's internal chemistry and immune function. The bones also serve as reservoirs for essential minerals, especially calcium and phosphorus. These minerals are continuously exchanged with the bloodstream, maintaining balance for muscle contraction, nerve signaling, and cellular function. When dietary intake is low or hormonal signals shift, as in aging or hormonal changes, the body draws upon this stored supply. Over time, if the withdrawals exceed the deposits, the bones weaken. This process, subtle and gradual, is one that rheumatology seeks to understand and prevent through nutrition, medication, and gentle movement that stimulates bone renewal. Despite its hardness, bone is remarkably sensitive. It contains nerves and blood vessels that penetrate through tiny canals, ensuring nourishment and communication. When injured, it feels pain. When strained, it adapts. This adaptability is essential to growth and survival. The bones of a child lengthen at the growth plates, zones of cartilage that gradually ossify as maturity approaches. In adults, bones continue to respond to the mechanical stresses of daily life, thickening in areas of high demand and thinning when disused. Astronauts, for example, experience bone loss in the absence of gravity, while athletes develop denser bones where repeated impact occurs. Such changes demonstrate that the skeleton is not a static support but a living partner in the body's dialogue with its environment. To contemplate the skeleton is to see beauty in what lies unseen. Its curves and angles are not random, but expressions of perfect geometry. The arches of the foot that bear weight, the ball and socket joints that grant rotation, the fine scaffolding of the inner ear that translates vibration into sound. Surface is shaped by evolution and refined by use. Within its quiet strength lies the memory of motion, the record of every step taken, every fall recovered, every act of reaching, bending, and standing tall. In the stillness of night, even when the body rests, the skeleton remains vigilant. Bone marrow continues its work, generating cells that defend and renew. Microscopic remodeling never ceases. It is a structure alive with activity. Without it, there would be no protection for the delicate organs within, no leverage for muscle to pull against, no upright stance to define the human form. It is the first architecture of being, a cathedral of mineral and protein that supports the fragile miracle of life. Rheumatology honors this hidden architecture not merely as anatomy but as evidence of the body's continual conversation with itself. The skeleton speaks through its adaptations, its strengths, and its vulnerabilities. It is a record of endurance, shaped by time and sustained by motion. In every sense, it is the foundation of support, the silent keeper of form, the enduring framework upon which all movement depends. In the next part, the story will flow naturally toward the art of connection, the joints themselves, those delicate meeting places where the stillness of bone becomes the possibility of motion and where the science of balance meets the beauty of movement. 4. The art of connection, joints and their design. At the meeting points of our bones, the body reveals one of its most graceful accomplishments, the joint. It is here, in these quiet intersections, that motion is born. The joint is not simply a hinge or a seam, but a masterpiece of biological engineering, blending strength with suppleness, endurance with elegance. Without joints, the skeleton would remain an unmoving framework, strong but lifeless. It is through these points of connection that stillness becomes movement, that intention becomes action, and that the human form expresses its capacity for grace. Every joint tells a story of balance. It must be strong enough to bear weight, yet flexible enough to permit motion. It must be smooth to reduce friction, yet stable enough to resist dislocation. The design of a joint is an artful compromise between mobility and security, a conversation between bone, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and fluid, each element playing its part in harmony. There are many types of joints within the human body, each adapted for its own purpose. Some, like the sutures of the skull, are immovable, fusing bones together to form protective barriers. Others, like the intervertebral joints of the spine, allow only slight movement, providing both flexibility and stability. But the most familiar and dynamic are the synovial joints, those of the shoulders, elbows, hips, knees, wrists, and fingers. It is within these fluid-filled spaces that the body's artistry is most evident. A synovial joint begins with the meeting of two or more bone surfaces. These surfaces are not bare. They are covered with articular cartilage, a smooth, resilient layer that acts as both cushion and glide. Cartilage has no blood vessels of its own, relying instead on the gentle circulation of synovial fluid for nourishment. This fluid, secreted by the synovial membrane that lines the inner surface of the joint capsule, is one of the most remarkable substances in the body. Clear and slightly viscous, it serves as both lubricant and nutrient medium. With every movement, the pressure within the joint shifts, forcing the fluid in and out of the cartilage, delivering oxygen and removing waste. It is a system of silent maintenance, keeping the machinery of motion running smoothly without conscious effort. The joint capsule itself is a marvel of design, a fibrous envelope that encases the joint, strong enough to protect, yet flexible enough to permit motion. It is reinforced by ligaments, dense bands of connective tissue that bind bone to bone, guiding movement while preventing excessive motion. Ligaments are not mere ropes or tethers. They are living tissues capable of sensing stretch and tension. Within them reside sensory nerve endings that communicate constantly with the nervous system, allowing the body to maintain balance and coordination. When a joint moves, these receptors signal the brain about position and movement, an awareness known as proprioception. It is this quiet communication that allows you to walk without watching your feet, to reach for an object without calculating distance, to move through space with effortless precision. Tendons, in turn, connect muscle to bone, transmitting the force of contraction that powers movement. Where a muscle ends and a tendon begins, the fibers interlace seamlessly, distributing tension and protecting against strain. When a muscle contracts, the tendon pulls on the bone, and the joint responds by moving through its designed range of motion. Each joint's range is determined by its structure. The shoulder, a ball and socket joint, sacrifices some stability for the gift of great mobility, allowing the arm to swing in almost every direction. The knee, a hinge joint, moves primarily in one plane flexion and extension, trading freedom for strength. The spine's small joints allow subtle twisting and bending, their combined motion granting the flexibility that defines posture. Beneath this mechanical elegance lies a delicate biochemical harmony. The cartilage within a joint is composed largely of collagen and proteoglycans, molecules that attract water and create a firm yet compressible matrix. When you stand or walk, the cartilage compresses slightly, forcing fluid out. When you rest, it reabsorbs the fluid, replenishing itself. This cycle of compression and release keeps the tissue healthy. Prolonged immobility, by contrast, can deprive cartilage of nourishment, leading to stiffness. Movement, even gentle movement, is the language through which joints are kept alive. In the study of rheumatology, joints are among the most eloquent storytellers of health and disease. They reflect the wear of time, the traces of injury, and the whispers of immune activity. In osteoarthritis, the cartilage gradually thins, the smooth surfaces becoming roughened, and bone begins to remodel in response to uneven pressure. The result is stiffness, swelling, and sometimes the formation of bony growths known as osteophytes. In inflammatory conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, the synovial membrane itself becomes overactive. Immune cells flood the joint space, releasing enzymes and cytokines that inflame the tissue and erode cartilage. The joint swells, becomes warm, and loses its fluid grace. Over time, if untreated, the structure may deform, altering alignment and motion. Yet even in these disorders, the body's attempts at repair are evident. New blood vessels form, immune cells remove damaged tissue, and fibroblasts begin to rebuild. The challenge lies in balance, how to calm the excessive response without halting the necessary process of renewal. Rheumatology, as a discipline, seeks to understand this balance, to protect the joint's intricate design while allowing the natural flow of healing to proceed. The sensitivity of joints extends beyond the physical. A person in chronic discomfort may unconsciously alter the way they walk or stand, shifting the body's balance and placing new stresses on other joints. Over time, these compensations can lead to fatigue and further strain. For this reason, rheumatology often approaches joint health holistically, recognizing that alignment, muscle tone, emotional well-being, and rest all contribute to function. Gentle exercise, such as stretching, swimming, or slow, mindful walking, helps sustain the rhythm of joint motion, keeping the synovial fluid circulating and the surrounding muscles strong. Movement, when performed with care, is one of the most potent forms of medicine for the joints. The artistry of joint design extends beyond simple mechanics into the poetry of evolution. Each species on Earth has developed joints suited to its way of life: the soaring wings of birds, the leaping legs of frogs, the flexible spines of cats. The human joint, refined through millions of years, represents a balance between mobility and endurance, allowing not only the running and climbing of early ancestors, but also the fine manipulations of hands that would one day write, paint, and create. The opposable thumb, with its saddle-shaped joint, is a triumph of design, a small feature that has shaped the course of human culture. Even when joints falter, when pain or stiffness sets in, they continue to embody the memory of movement. The creak of an aging knee or the ache of a stiff shoulder is not merely a sign of decline, but a reminder of a life in motion. Each joint carries the imprint of experience, the steps taken, the burdens lifted, the gestures made in work and affection alike. They are the living hinges of memory, recording in their wear the story of existence. In the quiet hours, when the body is still, the joints rest yet never sleep. The synovial fluid continues to circulate slowly. The cartilage absorbs and releases its nutrients. The ligaments maintain their gentle tension. The body prepares itself for another day of motion. Rheumatology, in studying this ongoing rhythm, reminds us that health is not static. It is the maintenance of flow, the continual conversation between structure and movement, protection and expression. The art of connection, then, is not limited to the physical joining of bones. It is the principle by which all living systems operate. Just as joints connect the parts of the body, relationships connect the experiences of life. Stability and movement, rest and action each must coexist for harmony to endure. To appreciate the design of the joints is to recognize the elegance of the human form, not as a collection of parts, but as a unified whole, always in dialogue with itself, always moving gently between strength and release. For within their fibers lies another dimension of the body's design, the power that moves the bones, the rhythm that sustains life, and the quiet strength that supports every graceful motion from within. 5. The language of movement, muscles in harmony. Beneath the stillness of the skin lies a world in constant motion, a living network of fibers that pulse and flow with silent strength. The muscles of the human body are the true instruments of motion, translating thought into action, energy into grace. Every gesture, from the smallest flicker of a fingertip to the steady rhythm of the heart, is written in this muscular language, a conversation of contraction and release, of power and precision, of stillness and flow. To understand the muscles is to listen to the music of the body itself, where every fiber plays its part in a delicate symphony of life. Muscles are not simply masses of flesh or bundles of tissue. Each one is composed of millions of microscopic cells called muscle fibers, long and slender, designed to shorten and lengthen in perfect coordination. These fibers work through a principle known as the sliding filament mechanism, in which two kinds of protein strands, actin and myosin, slide past one another in rhythmic succession. This movement, though invisible to the eye, powers every voluntary motion we perform. Precision. Chemical energy stored in nutrients is converted into mechanical energy, allowing the body to lift, walk, breathe, and even maintain posture when seemingly at rest. There are three main types of muscle tissue within the human body: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac, and each serves a different purpose in the harmony of the whole. Skeletal muscles, attached to bones by tendons, are responsible for the movements we control consciously: the bending of a knee, the turning of the head, the reaching of the hand. Smooth muscles, found in the walls of organs such as the stomach, blood vessels, and intestines, move involuntarily, guiding the slow currents of digestion and circulation. Cardiac muscle, found only in the heart, beats tirelessly from the first moment of life to the last, its rhythm self-sustaining and unbroken. Though distinct in function, all three types share a single essence of living. Skeletal muscles, the most familiar to us, form the visible contours of the body. They work in pairs or groups, pulling rather than pushing, each contraction balanced by another's relaxation. When you bend your arm, for example, the biceps contract while the triceps lengthen. When you straighten it again, the roles reverse. This reciprocity is what gives movement its smoothness. Without such balance, motion would be jerky and uncoordinated. The nervous system orchestrates this interplay with exquisite timing, sending electrical signals along motor neurons that trigger contraction within milliseconds. The result is movement that appears effortless, but is in fact the product of precise coordination across thousands of individual fibers. The strength of a muscle depends not only on its size, but also on the number of fibers activated at once and the frequency of their contractions. When we first learn a new movement, such as playing an instrument or practicing a new form of exercise, the body's efficiency improves not through growth but through refinement. Over time, repeated use leads to hypertrophy, an increase in muscle fiber size, while disuse brings the opposite. In this constant responsiveness, muscle mirrors the principles of adaptation that shape all living tissues. It grows stronger through demand, weaker through neglect, and ever seeks balance between rest and activity. Each muscle fiber contains its own store of energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, the body's universal energy currency. During contraction, ATP is broken down, releasing the energy needed for the myosin filaments to pull on actin. When ATP reserves run low, the body turns to stored glycogen and fat, breaking them down to renew its supply. Lactic acid, a byproduct of this process, can accumulate during intense exertion, leading to the familiar burning sensation in tired muscles. Yet even this discomfort serves a purpose, signaling the need for rest and recovery. After exertion, the body restores its chemical balance, clears metabolic byproducts, and repairs micro tears in the fibers, making them stronger than before. Every act of motion carries within it a cycle of stress and renewal, an echo of nature's broader rhythms of effort and restoration. Muscles are not mere engines of strength, they are also organs of expression. The subtle movements of the face convey emotion. The posture of the body communicates intention long before words are spoken. Even breathing, often taken for granted, depends on the steady work of the diaphragm and intercostal muscles. These contract and relax in gentle waves, drawing air into the lungs and expelling it again in a rhythm that mirrors the tides. In this way, the muscular system becomes both functional and poetic, shaping not only how we move but how we exist within the world. The language of muscles extends beyond conscious control. Smooth muscles work tirelessly within us, moving food along the digestive tract, adjusting the diameter of blood vessels, and regulating the flow of air in the lungs. They respond not to thought but to signals from the autonomic nervous system, a network that operates beneath awareness. When the body needs to conserve heat, small muscles in the skin contract, causing hair to rise and creating the familiar sensation of goosebumps. When fear or excitement heightens the senses, smooth muscles constrict blood vessels and quicken the heartbeat. These responses are ancient and instinctive, woven deeply into the biology of survival. Cardiac muscle stands apart as a marvel of endurance. Unlike skeletal muscle, it does not tire easily, and unlike smooth muscle, it contracts with rhythmic precision. Each heartbeat is initiated by electrical impulses generated within the heart itself, propagated through a network of specialized cells known as the conduction system. These signals ensure that the chambers of the heart contract in a coordinated sequence, propelling blood through the arteries and sustaining the circulation that nourishes every tissue. The heart's autonomy is a reminder of the body's quiet intelligence, the capacity of its parts to sustain life without conscious thought. Rheumatology, though primarily associated with joints and connective tissues, also concerns itself with muscles, for they too can suffer from inflammation, weakness, or autoimmune attack. Conditions such as polymyositis and dermatomyositis reveal how the immune system can turn against the very fibers that grant movement, leading to fatigue, pain, and loss of strength. In these cases, the muscles speak through discomfort, signaling an internal imbalance. The study of such disorders deepens our appreciation for the fragility and resilience of the muscular system, its capacity for recovery when nurtured, and its vulnerability when neglected. Movement is not merely physical, it is also emotional and psychological. Muscles store patterns of tension that reflect our inner states. The neck stiffens under stress. The shoulders tighten with worry, The jaw clenches in silence. These habitual postures become ingrained over time, shaping not only how we move but how we feel. Gentle practices such as stretching, massage, and mindful breathing help release this stored tension, reminding the body of its natural rhythm of expansion and release. In this sense, caring for the muscles is not simply a matter of physical maintenance, but of cultivating a deeper harmony between body and mind. At rest, even when we are unaware, muscles continue their quiet work. The postural muscles maintain the body's alignment, preventing collapse. The heart beats without pause. The muscles of the digestive tract move rhythmically, sustaining life while consciousness drifts. It is humbling to consider how much effort goes unnoticed, how the body labors ceaselessly in the service of existence. In the stillness of sleep, microscopic repairs unfold, proteins are synthesized, damaged fibers are replaced, and the energy stores of every cell are replenished. The language of movement continues, soft and steady, beneath the threshold of awareness. In the end, the muscles are not separate from the self. They are the self in motion. They transform thought into gesture, potential into expression. To move is to live, and to live is to participate in the endless dialogue between stillness and motion. The language of the muscles is one of continuity, a steady conversation between will and nature, intention and instinct. As we continue our exploration, we will turn our gaze to the connective tissues that weave between these systems, linking muscle to bone and organ to organ. Within those fine fibers lies the body's true network of unity, the subtle threads that bind all movement into one continuous whole, ensuring that nothing within us moves alone. 6. Connective tissues. The body's silent network. Beneath the surface of motion, beneath the shifting of muscles and the flexing of joints, there lies a subtler system, one that holds everything together in quiet coherence. This is the world of connective tissue, the body's unseen network, a fine web that links every organ, muscle, and bone into a single, harmonious whole. It is the soft scaffolding that gives structure to form, the binding medium that allows the body to move as one, and the gentle cushion that protects the fragile machinery of life. To understand connective tissue is to glimpse the invisible architecture of existence, a lattice of strength and suppleness woven throughout every part of the body. Connective tissue is both everywhere and rarely noticed. It fills the spaces between other tissues, wraps around them, and binds them into functional units. It forms tendons that tether muscle to bone, ligaments that anchor bone to bone, and fascia that encases and connects the body's layers in continuous sheets. It also appears within the organs themselves, providing the supportive framework that maintains their shape. Even the blood, often seen as a fluid rather than a fabric, is classified as a connective tissue, for it shares the same origin and purpose: to connect, to nourish, to sustain the dialogue between parts. What makes connective tissue so remarkable is its versatility. It can be as dense and strong as a tendon, as elastic as the wall of an artery, or as delicate as the membranes that line the lungs. All forms of connective tissue share the same basic components: cells that produce and maintain the tissue, fibers that provide strength and flexibility, and ground substance, a gel-like material that fills the spaces between cells and fibers, allowing for both structure and flow. These elements combine in different proportions to create an astonishing variety of textures and functions, from the resilience of cartilage to the softness of fat. At the heart of this network lies collagen, the body's most abundant protein. Its very name, derived from the Greek word kala meaning glue, reflects its role as the universal binder. Collagen fibers are strong yet flexible, able to withstand tension without tearing. In tendons, they are packed in parallel bundles, providing immense tensile strength for transmitting the force of muscle contractions. In skin and ligaments, they weave in multi-directional patterns, granting both support and pliability. There are many types of collagen, each with subtle variations suited to its environment. Type 1, forming the scaffolds of bone and skin. Type 2, giving cartilage its smooth resilience. And type 3, lending elasticity to the walls of blood vessels and hollow organs. Together, these fibers create the framework upon which the living body depends. Intertwined with collagen is elastin, another structural protein that grants tissues their ability to stretch and return to shape. Without elastin, every movement would strain the body's fibers to breaking. With it, tissues can expand and contract thousands of times without losing form. This quality is most evident in the lungs and arteries, which must stretch with every breath and heartbeat, respectively. Elastin gives the body its graceful elasticity, allowing it to bend and flex while preserving its integrity. The cells responsible for producing and maintaining these fibers are known as fibroblasts, quiet, industrious builders that dwell within the connective matrix. Fibroblasts are never truly at rest. They continuously secrete collagen, elastin, and the components of ground substance. When injury occurs, fibroblasts become activated, migrating to the damaged area to lay down new fibers in an orderly pattern of healing. Over time, their work restores strength to what was torn, though sometimes at the cost of suppleness. The scars they create are functional but rigid, reminders of the body's remarkable ability to mend itself even when perfection cannot be regained. Though it may appear inert, it is alive with sensory nerve endings that detect pressure, stretch, and pain. The fascia, in particular, contains a vast network of mechanoreceptors, tiny sensors that send constant feedback to the brain about posture and tension. When a muscle contracts, the fascia surrounding it stretches and transmits information about position and force. This sensory web contributes to proprioception, the body's innate sense of balance and alignment. It is through connective tissue that we feel where we are in space, even with eyes closed, and through it that subtle emotional states can manifest as tension or ease within the body. Rheumatology. Connective tissue holds a special place, for many of the conditions studied in this field originate within it. Autoimmune disorders such as systemic lupus, erythematosus, scleroderma, and mixed connective tissue disease involve the immune system's mistaken attack on the body's own structural proteins. The results vary. Skin may tighten, blood vessels may stiffen, or joints may ache, but the underlying theme remains the same: a disruption of the body's silent network. These conditions remind us that the connective tissue is not merely a passive scaffold, but an active participant in the body's immune and metabolic functions. When it suffers, the effects ripple outward through every system. Fascia, perhaps the most misunderstood element of this network, exemplifies the unity of the body. It is a continuous web of thin, translucent tissue that surrounds every muscle, bone, nerve, and organ, binding all parts into a single, interconnected whole. Once dismissed as mere packing material, fascia is now recognized as a dynamic system that transmits mechanical forces and influences circulation, immunity, and even mood. When fascia becomes restricted through injury, inflammation, or chronic tension, it can limit movement and cause pain in distant areas of the body. Much like a snag in a woven fabric distorts the entire cloth, gentle movement, stretching, and therapeutic touch help restore its glide, releasing the subtle constraints that accumulate over time. Cartilage, another specialized form of connective tissue, serves as both cushion and structural support. It forms the smooth surfaces of joints, the flexible framework of the nose and ears, and the resilient discs between vertebrae. Its unique composition, rich in collagen and proteoglycans, allows it to absorb shocks and resist compression. Yet cartilage lacks a direct blood supply, relying instead on diffusion of nutrients through the surrounding fluid. This makes it slow to heal, a quality that underscores its vulnerability in diseases such as osteoarthritis, where repeated stress and inflammation gradually wear it away. Still, even within these challenges, the body continues its quiet efforts at repair, guided by the same cellular intelligence that governs all living tissues. Connective tissue's relationship with water is another of its defining features. The ground substance that fills the spaces between cells and fibers is a hydrated gel composed of molecules like hyaluronic acid, which can hold many times its weight in water. This fluid medium allows nutrients to flow and waste to be removed, creating a living environment that nourishes every cell. The health of connective tissue thus depends greatly on hydration and movement. When the body is still for too long, circulation stagnates, and the gel becomes less pliable. This is why stretching, walking, and gentle activity feel restorative. They reawaken the currents within the tissue, keeping the matrix supple and free, alive. In its quiet way, connective tissue teaches a profound lesson about unity. It demonstrates that no part of the body exists in isolation. A disturbance in one area, no matter how small, can be felt elsewhere through this continuous web. The pain in a shoulder may originate in the tension of the back. This holistic perspective is central to rheumatology, which views the body as an integrated system rather than a collection of parts. Healing, too, must honor this interconnectedness, addressing not only symptoms, but the subtle imbalances that underlie them. The body's silent network is not static. It breathes, shifts, and adapts. Every movement, every heartbeat, every breath sends a ripple through its fibers. It holds us together, yet it also allows us to change. When we stretch, it lengthens. When we rest, it settles into new equilibrium. It is as sensitive as silk and as strong as steel, responding to touch, emotion, and motion alike. To care for it is to respect the unity of the body, to move gently, to hydrate, and to rest with awareness. Connective tissue is, in essence, the body's memory. It records the patterns of movement and stillness, of injury and recovery, of tension and release. Over time, it shapes itself around our habits, carrying the traces of how we have lived. To understand it is to recognize that every gesture, every posture, every moment of life leaves an imprint, and yet, like the rest of the body, it is never fixed. With patience and care, it can renew itself, soften, and adapt once more. As we move onward, our focus will turn to a deeper and more mysterious realm within this interconnected system, the immune response that both protects and, at times, misguides the body. Within that invisible conflict lies the key to many rheumatologic conditions, where defense becomes confusion, and the silent network must learn again to distinguish friend from foe. 7. The immune system's role when defense turns inward. Within every human being, there exists a quiet guardian, an intricate defense network that watches over the body day and night. This is the immune system, an invisible yet vigilant protector, ceaselessly distinguishing between what belongs to the self and what does not. It identifies invaders, neutralizes threats, and orchestrates healing after injury. But like all powerful systems, it requires delicate balance. When harmony is lost, when its wisdom falters, the same forces designed to protect can turn inward, mistaking friend for foe. This is the paradox at the heart of many rheumatologic conditions, that the body's own defenses, in their confusion, can bring about the very suffering they were meant to prevent. The immune system is not located in any one place. It is distributed like a network of sentinels across the body. It resides in the bloodstream, in the bone marrow, in the lymph nodes, and even within the delicate linings of tissues. Its components are many and varied. White blood cells that patrol for intruders, antibodies that recognize and neutralize specific threats, and signaling molecules called cytokines that carry messages between cells. Together, These elements form a living system of communication and coordination, capable of responding within seconds to even the faintest sign of danger. Under normal circumstances, the immune system acts with remarkable precision. When bacteria enter through a wound, specialized cells recognize chemical patterns unique to the invaders. The alarm is raised, and an army of immune cells rushes to the site. Inflammation begins a process as old as life itself. Blood vessels widen, increasing the flow of oxygen and nutrients. White blood cells migrate into the tissue, releasing enzymes that destroy pathogens and clear away damaged cells. Swelling, warmth, and redness appear, visible signs of this microscopic battle. In time, as the threat subsides, the system retreats, leaving behind a landscape of repair. This process, when controlled, is not only protective, but essential for healing. However, the immune system's intelligence depends on one critical skill: the ability to recognize self from non-self. Every cell in the body carries molecular markers that identify it as belonging to the individual. Much like a passport verifies citizenship, immune cells are trained to ignore these familiar signals and to target only what is foreign. In autoimmune diseases, this recognition system falters, for reasons that are still not fully understood. The immune system begins to see the body's own tissues as if they were invaders. Antibodies, which normally target viruses or bacteria, turn their attention toward healthy cells. The result is a chronic, misdirected response, a state of self-attack that leads to inflammation, pain, and gradual tissue damage. In rheumatology, this self-reactive process lies at the heart of many conditions. In rheumatoid arthritis, for instance, the immune system targets the synovial membrane, the thin layer that lines the joints. What begins as mild inflammation soon becomes persistent and destructive. The synovial tissue thickens, producing excess fluid, and immune cells infiltrate the space, releasing enzymes that erode cartilage and bone. The joint swells, stiffens, and eventually deforms if untreated. In systemic lupus erythematosus, the immune system's confusion is even more widespread. Antibodies form against components found in nearly every cell, leading to inflammation that can affect the skin, kidneys, heart, and nervous system. Scleroderma, another autoimmune condition, triggers the overproduction of collagen, causing the skin and internal organs to harden and lose flexibility. Though these disorders differ in appearance, they share a single root: medicine's most profound mysteries. Genetics plays a role. Certain inherited traits increase susceptibility, predisposing the immune system to overreact. Environmental triggers also contribute. Infections, stress, hormones, or even exposure to ultraviolet light can awaken dormant tendencies. Some researchers liken the immune system to an orchestra. When every instrument is tuned and coordinated, the result is harmony. But when one section falters or plays out of time, the music becomes discordant. Autoimmunity is that discord, the immune orchestra losing its rhythm, mistaking its own melodies for foreign noise. Inflammation, though often seen as the enemy in these conditions, is not inherently harmful. It is the body's ancient language of repair, the call to action when something is wrong. In moderation, it heals. In excess, it harms. The same molecules that destroy invading microbes can also damage healthy tissue when released unchecked. Messengers are key players in this process. They regulate inflammation by instructing cells when to attack and when to stand down. In autoimmune diseases, this regulation breaks down, and cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor, TNF, and interleukin-6 continue to fuel inflammation long after the original stimulus has disappeared. The body remains trapped in a cycle of alarm, unable to return to peace. Rheumatology, as a discipline, seeks not to silence the immune system, but to restore its equilibrium. Treatments are designed to temper its overactivity without dismantling its protective functions. Medications such as corticosteroids and disease-modifying antirheumatic drugs, DMARDs, reduce inflammation, while newer biologic therapies target specific cytokines or immune pathways, offering precision where once only broad suppression was possible. Yet the true art of management lies beyond medication alone. It includes gentle exercise, balanced nutrition, and mindfulness practices that calm the body's stress responses, which are intimately tied to immune activity. The mind and immune system are not strangers to one another. Emotion, rest, and environment all shape their dialogue. When viewed with empathy, the autoimmune response can even be seen as a misdirected act of care, a defense mechanism that has lost its sense of self. The immune system, designed to protect, becomes overzealous, striving so hard to eliminate danger that it perceives danger everywhere. Its confusion mirrors the human tendency to guard too fiercely against imagined threats, to fight even when peace would serve better. In this way, the science of rheumatology touches upon something deeply human, the struggle between vigilance and trust, between protection and surrender. Within the joints, muscles, and connective tissues, the effects of autoimmunity unfold slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Fatigue creeps in. A stiffness greets the morning. A swelling appears where once there was ease. These are not random afflictions, but the echoes of the immune system's unrest. Beneath them lies a cellular dialogue gone awry, macrophages releasing enzymes, lymphocytes producing antibodies, cytokines summoning reinforcements. The tissues respond in kind, thickening, scarring, or breaking down. Yet even amid this turmoil, the body continues its attempts at balance. Regulatory immune cells, the peacemakers of the system, work quietly to dampen the inflammation and restore order. Healing, though often incomplete, is always sought. The immune system's complexity reflects the larger principle that governs all of biology: balance through opposition. Every defense carries the potential for excess. Every act of destruction contains the seed of renewal. The same white blood cells that cause swelling after an injury also clear the debris that allows new tissue to grow. The antibodies that mistakenly target the body can, in other circumstances, provide lifelong protection from infection. Nature's design is not flawed but dynamic, its mechanisms capable of great precision and, at times, painful error. In the stillness of the bloodstream, millions of immune cells drift like stars in a vast, invisible cosmos. Each one carries memory and imprint of past encounters, a record of battles fought and won. They are the historians of the body, preserving knowledge that allows faster response to familiar threats. Yet sometimes, memory itself becomes a trap. When the immune system remembers too vividly, it can mistake normal cells for old enemies, reacting to harmless patterns as if they were intruders. In this way, autoimmunity can be seen as memory without mercy, a lesson the body cannot forget. Rheumatology teaches us to see the immune system not as a battlefield, but as a conversation that has lost its clarity. The goal is not to silence the dialogue, but to remind it of its proper tone. Through careful guidance, medication, rest, nutrition, and emotional steadiness, body can relearn its own boundaries. The immune system, once misled, can gradually return to its original wisdom, to protect without harming, to heal without fear. And so, the study of autoimmunity becomes more than a study of disease. It is an inquiry into the nature of self-recognition, of how the body knows itself and what happens when that knowing fades. It reveals that even within conflict, there is purpose, that beneath pain, there is the persistence of life's intention to survive and adapt. The immune system, though it may err, is ultimately a reflection of the body's devotion to preservation. It fights because it loves, defends because it remembers, and heals because it must. In the chapters that follow, we will move deeper into the landscape of these disorders, exploring how the immune system's misplaced fervor gives rise to specific rheumatic diseases. We will see how inflammation, the body's ancient instrument of defense, becomes both a healer and a destroyer, and how understanding its rhythm allows medicine to restore balance to the quiet symphony of the human form. The spectrum of rheumatic conditions. The story of rheumatology unfolds across a broad and intricate landscape, where each condition is like a variation on a single theme. The theme of inflammation, balance, and the body's enduring attempt to maintain harmony. No two rheumatic diseases are exactly alike, yet all share a connection through the tissues they affect and the systems they involve. Some confine themselves to the joints, others wander through the organs, the skin, or the blood vessels. Some arrive with sudden intensity, others creep in quietly, shaping life over years. Together, they form what physicians call the spectrum of rheumatic conditions, a continuum that stretches from the mechanical wear of aging to the mysterious misfires of the immune system. To explore this spectrum is to glimpse how profoundly interconnected the body's structures are and how delicate the balance between motion, defense, and renewal can be. At one end of this spectrum lie the degenerative diseases, those that arise not from immune confusion but from the passage of time and the constant rhythm of movement. Chief among these is osteoarthritis, the most common of all joint disorders. In osteoarthritis, the smooth cartilage that cushions the ends of bones gradually wears away. The process begins subtly, perhaps a knee that aches after climbing stairs, or fingers that stiffen in the morning but loosen as the day unfolds. Under the microscope, the changes are profound. Cartilage cells lose their vitality, the matrix that supports them begins to break down, and the joint surfaces become roughened. The body attempts to repair the damage by forming new bone at the margins, resulting in small protrusions called osteophytes. The joint swells slightly, and movement becomes less fluid. Though osteoarthritis is not driven by autoimmunity, it shares with inflammatory diseases the theme of imbalance and overcorrection in one area leading to strain in another. Yet even in its gradual erosion, osteoarthritis demonstrates the body's resilience. It adapts, remodels, and continues to bear the weight of daily life, sometimes for decades. Moving further along the spectrum, the scene shifts from mechanical wear to immune-driven inflammation. Here we encounter rheumatoid arthritis, one of the defining conditions of rheumatology. Unlike osteoarthritis, which affects isolated joints, rheumatoid arthritis is systemic, meaning it influences the body as a whole. It begins when the immune system targets the synovial membrane, the delicate lining of the joint capsule. This attack triggers an inflammatory cascade. The synovium thickens, blood vessels proliferate, and immune cells flood the space. Over time, the persistent inflammation erodes cartilage and bone, leading to pain, deformity, and loss of function. Yet beyond the joints, rheumatoid arthritis can touch other organs as well. The eyes, lungs, heart, and skin may all reflect its reach. The condition's variability is one of its hallmarks. It can flare unpredictably, recede into quiet remission, and then awaken again without warning. In this cyclical rhythm lies a strange reflection of life itself, a reminder that the body, like nature, moves through phases of activity and rest, destruction and repair. Closely related to rheumatoid arthritis are a group of disorders known as the spondyloarthropathies. These include ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthritis, and reactive arthritis, among others. What binds them together is their shared tendency to involve both joints and entheses, the sites where tendons and ligaments attach to bone. In ankylosing spondylitis, inflammation begins in the spine and sacroiliac joints, the deep foundations of posture. The body's response to this inflammation is to build new bone, and the once fluid motion of the spine becomes restricted. Yet even here, The body's intention is not purely destructive. It builds in an effort to stabilize what has been inflamed, to restore order through structure. In psoriatic arthritis, the skin and joints speak the same language of inflammation. The scaly patches of psoriasis reflect immune activity in the skin, while the joints mirror that same process beneath. Each of these conditions demonstrates how the immune system's patterns echo through different tissues, creating variations on a shared biological theme. Beyond the joints, the immune system sometimes turns its attention to the connective tissues themselves, giving rise to the systemic autoimmune diseases that define much of rheumatology's deeper complexity. Systemic lupus erythematosus, or lupus for short, is perhaps the most evocative of these. Its symptoms are as varied as its name is lyrical. The disease may touch the skin, leaving a butterfly-shaped rash across the cheeks, or it may move silently through the kidneys, heart, or nervous system. Underlying it all is the production of autoantibodies, immune proteins, that mistake the body's own DNA and cellular components for intruders. These antibodies form complexes that circulate in the blood, depositing in tissues and provoking inflammation. The result is a condition that can wax and wane like the moon from which its name derives, unpredictable yet governed by the same cycles of nature that shape all living systems. Another condition along this continuum is scleroderma, whose name means hard skin. In scleroderma, the immune system stimulates fibroblasts, the connective tissue's builders, to produce excessive collagen. The skin becomes taut, shiny, and less flexible, while internal organs may also become stiffened. It is a disease of overproduction, where the body's instinct to strengthen and repair becomes excessive. Despite its challenges, scleroderma also reveals the body's devotion to preservation. It is an attempt, however misguided, to fortify the self. Similarly, in conditions such as polymyositis and dermatomyositis, the immune system directs its attention toward muscle fibers, causing weakness and fatigue. Even in the simplest act, lifting an arm or climbing a step, the body's immense complexity becomes apparent, as inflammation subtly alters the harmony of movement. Among the more distinct conditions on this spectrum is gout, a disease with roots that stretch back to antiquity. Unlike autoimmune diseases, gout arises from a metabolic imbalance, the accumulation of uric acid crystals in the joints. These tiny, needle-like crystals form when the body produces more uric acid than it can excrete, often as a result of diet, genetics, or kidney function. When they settle in a joint, typically the big toe, they trigger an intense inflammatory reaction. The joint becomes red, swollen, and exquisitely painful, as though fire itself had taken residence within. Historically, gout was associated with kings and feasts, but it is in truth a universal condition, a reminder that even the simplest molecules of metabolism can shape the course of human comfort. Vasculitis, another branch of rheumatologic disease, involves inflammation of the blood vessels. Here, the immune system attacks the very pathways through which blood flows. Large, medium, or small vessels may be affected, depending on the type: giant cell arteritis in the elderly, Kawasaki disease in children, or microscopic polyangiitis in adults. The consequences vary. When vessels narrow, tissues are starved of oxygen. When they weaken, bleeding may occur. Yet even in this disruption, the body strives for balance. New vessels may grow, alternate routes may form, and healing may eventually restore the integrity of flow. Between these well-defined conditions lies a broad space of overlap and uncertainty. Some patients show features of several diseases at once, leading to what physicians call mixed connective tissue disease, or undifferentiated autoimmune syndromes. These blurred boundaries remind us that nature rarely conforms to human categories. The immune system operates on a continuum, its activity shifting gradually rather than in distinct steps. To treat such conditions is not to impose rigid labels, but to listen carefully to the body's evolving story. Across the entire spectrum of rheumatic disease, one theme remains constant. Inflammation, though often painful, serves a purpose. It clears debris, summons repair, and attempts to restore equilibrium. The challenge arises when this response fails to subside, when the fire meant to heal continues to burn. Treatments, therefore, aim not to extinguish the flame entirely, but to modulate its intensity, guiding it toward resolution rather than chaos. Beyond medicine, there lies a deeper lesson within these conditions. They teach patience and awareness, the understanding that the body, like the earth itself, moves through cycles of damage and recovery. There is no clear line between health and illness, only a dynamic balance constantly being renegotiated. Each rheumatic condition, from the quiet stiffness of osteoarthritis to the widespread complexity of lupus, reflects a particular way the body seeks to preserve itself, to adapt, or to defend. And in every case, the goal of treatment and understanding is not merely to suppress symptoms, but to restore the body's conversation with itself, to reestablish harmony in the dialogue between structure, immunity, and time. As we move onward, we will explore this dialogue more closely by examining inflammation itself, the ancient, universal process at the center of so many of these conditions. It is a phenomenon both creative and destructive, capable of healing wounds or breaking them open anew. To understand its rhythm is to understand life's most elemental balance, the fire that sustains and the fire that consumes. 9. The chemistry of inflammation. In the quiet world of the body, every cell lives in a delicate state of balance. Fluids flow, oxygen passes, and nutrients are exchanged with a rhythm so constant that it goes unnoticed. Yet within this serenity lies the potential for sudden awakening, a spark of activity that can transform calm into urgency. This awakening is inflammation, one of biology's oldest and most essential processes. It is both protector and destroyer, healer and harbinger of pain. In its purest form, inflammation is the body's response to harm, a call to arms that summons defense, repair, and renewal. But when this response endures beyond its purpose, when the fire of healing continues to burn long after the threat has passed, it becomes a source of damage itself. To understand inflammation is to understand the chemistry of life's most powerful paradox. The word inflammation originates from the Latin inflammare, meaning to set on fire. The ancient physicians who named it observed its classic signs: heat, redness, swelling, pain, and loss of function. They understood that these changes were the body's reaction to injury or disease, though they could not see the microscopic events beneath the surface. Today, science has revealed that inflammation is a precisely choreographed sequence of chemical and cellular interactions. It begins when the body senses danger, whether from invading microbes, damaged cells, or even molecular distress signals from within. Specialized sensors embedded in cell membranes recognize patterns associated with harm, triggering a cascade of responses that unfolds with remarkable coordination. At the heart of this process are the immune cells, particularly the white blood cells that patrol the bloodstream. When they detect signs of injury, they release chemical messengers called cytokines, which act like alarm bells, spreading the signal to nearby tissues and distant organs. Blood vessels in the affected area widen, allowing more blood to flow through. The walls of these vessels become more permeable, enabling immune cells, fluid, and proteins to exit the circulation and enter the tissue. The area becomes warm and swollen, a visible manifestation of this increased activity. Meanwhile, neutrophils, the body's first responders, arrive at the scene. They engulf bacteria, remove debris, and release reactive molecules that neutralize threats. Behind them come macrophages, slower but more deliberate, clearing the remnants of battle and beginning the process of repair. All of this unfolds through chemistry so complex that it resembles a symphony rather than a single act. The molecules involved include histamine, prostaglandins, interleukins, and countless others, each with a specific role and timing. Some expand blood vessels, others attract more immune cells. Still, others quiet the reaction when the danger has passed. Prostaglandins, for example, are derived from fatty acids and are responsible for generating the sensation of pain and heat. Cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor TNF and interleukin 1 amplify inflammation, while others, like interleukin 10, serve to calm it. The balance between these forces determines whether inflammation heals or harms. In acute inflammation, the short, sharp kind that follows a cut or infection, the process is self-limiting. Once the injury is repaired or the intruder eliminated, anti-inflammatory molecules take over, instructing immune cells to withdraw. The tissue regenerates, swelling subsides, and the redness fades. This is the body's natural rhythm. Action, followed by resolution. But when this rhythm falters, when the chemical signals that should turn off the response fail to do so, inflammation becomes chronic. In chronic inflammation, the body remains in a state of low-grade alert, continually producing cytokines and enzymes that slowly erode the tissues they were meant to protect. This is the landscape of many rheumatic diseases, where inflammation becomes an echo that never quite fades. In rheumatoid arthritis, for example, the synovial membrane of the joint becomes a stage for ongoing inflammation. Immune cells infiltrate the lining, releasing cytokines that attract more cells, creating a self-sustaining cycle. The fluid within the joint thickens with inflammatory proteins, and the once smooth cartilage begins to wear down. Enzymes like matrix metalloproteinases break apart the collagen that forms the cartilage's foundation. The joint swells, stiffens, and aches not because of mechanical strain alone, but because of chemical fire burning beneath the surface. Similar patterns appear in other rheumatic conditions. Lupus, where immune complexes deposit in tissues. Vasculitis, where blood vessel walls become inflamed. And polymyositis, where muscle fibers are attacked by overactive immune cells. In all these diseases, the chemistry of inflammation becomes the thread that connects them. It is important to recognize that inflammation, even when chronic, is not malicious. It is a process without intent, guided by molecular logic rather than will. The immune system cannot hate. It only reacts. The challenge in rheumatology is not to destroy this process, but to guide it back into proportion. The body's chemistry must be reminded of its original purpose, to heal, not to harm. Modern medicine approaches this through a combination of pharmacology and understanding. Anti-inflammatory drugs, such as corticosteroids and nonsteroidal agents, work by interfering with the pathways that produce cytokines and prostaglandins. More advanced therapies, called biologics, target specific molecules like TNF or interleukin 6, neutralizing them and interrupting the cycle of inflammation at its source. These treatments are acts of chemical diplomacy, quieting the body's overzealous responses without silencing its defenses entirely. Yet beyond medicine, there are subtler ways to influence this chemistry. The inflammatory state is not isolated from the rest of life. It is shaped by the food we eat, the sleep we keep, the stress we endure, and even the emotions we carry. Chronic stress, for instance, floods the body with hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which can disrupt immune regulation. A diet rich in processed foods and poor in natural oils and fiber can tilt the body toward pro-inflammatory pathways, while gentle movement and deep rest encourage resolution. The body is always listening, always responding to its environment, its chemistry echoing the patterns of daily living. To reduce inflammation is, in part, to restore harmony not just within the joints or tissues, but across the whole landscape of existence. At the cellular level, one of the most fascinating aspects of inflammation is its cyclical nature. When an immune cell encounters distress, it activates, performs its duty, and then undergoes a process of programmed cell death known as apoptosis, a peaceful end that signals completion. The remnants of these cells are cleared away by macrophages, which then release anti-inflammatory molecules to resolve the response. When this cycle is interrupted, either by genetic predisposition or environmental stress, inflammation lingers. The immune cells remain activated, releasing signals that perpetuate their own survival. The fire that should have been a brief blaze becomes a smoldering ember, consuming energy and leaving subtle damage in its wake. Over months and years, this low-level inflammation contributes not only to rheumatic diseases but also to cardiovascular disease, metabolic disorders, and even aging itself. The chemistry of inflammation, for all its complexity, is also a story of intention. Every molecule released, every signal sent, is part of the body's effort to maintain integrity. When tissues are injured, inflammation calls forth repair. It is the biological equivalent of empathy, a recognition of distress and a response to it. That it can go astray is a reminder of how fine the line between protection and injury can be. But within this same mechanism lies the key to recovery. Just as certain molecules ignite inflammation, others resolve it. Lipoxins, resolvins, and protectins, substances discovered in recent decades, serve as the body's own peacekeepers. They do not simply turn off inflammation. They actively promote healing, guiding tissues back toward equilibrium. Understanding and supporting these natural mediators is one of the great frontiers of modern rheumatology. In the quiet moments between flare and remission, when pain subsides and the body rests, the chemistry of inflammation continues its silent work. Rebuild the tissues that were damaged. It is a slow and patient process, one that mirrors the rhythms of nature, the way a forest regenerates after fire, the way soil replenishes itself after rain. The same principle governs both. Disturbance, followed by renewal. Ultimately, inflammation is neither enemy nor ally, but a process of transformation. It represents the body's ceaseless attempt to adapt, to mend, and to survive. When it burns too fiercely, it teaches restraint. When it fails to appear, it reminds us of our vulnerability. The chemistry that drives it is not a flaw in design, but an expression of life's persistence, a chemical dialogue that has sustained living beings since their first spark on Earth. As we move forward, we will look more closely at where this chemistry unfolds most vividly. The joint itself, with its synovial fluid, its cartilage, and its delicate balance of motion and protection. There, within the quiet capsule of connection, the body's chemistry becomes visible as movement, friction, and grace, revealing once again the art and science of living in balance. 10. The synovial symphony. Inside a joint capsule, deep within the architecture of the human body, lies one of its most elegant designs, a chamber of motion so refined that it allows the bones to glide against one another in near-eye silence. This is the synovial joint, a small but complex world enclosed within a capsule, filled with life and rhythm. Every time we move, whether to reach for a glass, bend a knee, it is a harmony of structure and chemistry, of pressure and fluid, of surfaces that never scrape but glide. The joint capsule, though small and often unnoticed, is a masterpiece of engineering, an organic symphony where every part plays a vital note in the music of motion. To enter the world of a synovial joint is to witness the meeting point between solidity and fluidity. The bones, strong and mineralized, provide the framework. The cartilage, smooth and resilient, cushions the movement, and between them flows the synovial fluid, clear as glass, rich with the substances that sustain and protect. The capsule itself is composed of two distinct layers, an outer fibrous sheath, tough and protective, and an inner membrane known as the synovium. The outer layer guards against dislocation, while the inner layer breathes life into the joint, secreting the fluid that keeps everything in motion. This arrangement seems simple at first glance, yet within it lies one of the body's most intricate systems of balance. It is viscous, smooth, and elastic, able to behave like both liquid and gel, depending on the forces placed upon it. When the joint is still, the fluid thickens slightly, forming a protective film that cushions the surfaces. Near frictionless glide. This ability, known as thixotropy, ensures that movement remains effortless while still protecting the tissues from wear. The principal molecule responsible for this magic is hyaluronic acid, a long, coiled chain of sugar molecules that trap water and give the fluid its characteristic texture. Alongside it are lubricin, a glycoprotein that reduces friction, and an assortment of proteins and electrolytes that nourish the cartilage. Together, they create a living lubricant, one that constantly adapts to the rhythm of movement. The cartilage that lines the ends of the bones is equally remarkable. Composed of a matrix of collagen and proteoglycans, it has no blood vessels, no nerves, and no direct supply of oxygen. Instead, it relies entirely on diffusion from the synovial fluid for its sustenance. Each movement of the joint acts like a pump, compressing and releasing the cartilage, driving fluid in and out, delivering nutrients and removing waste. This means that movement itself is a form of nourishment. To move is to feed the joints. To remain still is to starve them. In this way, the synovial joint embodies a simple but profound truth of biology, that life thrives in motion, and stagnation invites decline. The surface of healthy cartilage is smooth beyond imagination, so smooth that even the finest engineered machines cannot match it. Its coefficient of friction, a measure of resistance, is lower than that of ice sliding on ice. Under a microscope, the cartilage reveals layers, each with a distinct purpose. The outermost zone contains tightly packed collagen fibers aligned parallel to the surface, resisting shear forces. Beneath it, the middle zone absorbs shock, its fibers arranged in gentle arcs. The deepest layer anchors the tissue to bone. Though silent and unseen, this layered structure bears the weight of every step, every movement of the hand, every tilt of the head. When this harmony is disrupted, when inflammation enters the joint capsule, the symphony begins to lose its rhythm. The synovium, which normally produces just enough fluid to maintain balance, becomes overactive, flooding the joint with excess fluid and inflammatory molecules. The once clear synovial fluid thickens, clouded by the debris of immune cells and tissue fragments. The cartilage, deprived of its normal nourishment, begins to break down, its surface pitted and roughened. In rheumatoid arthritis, this process can progress rapidly as immune cells infiltrate the synovium and create a thickened tissue known as pannus, which creeps across the cartilage like a slow, consuming tide. The result is pain, stiffness, and loss of motion symptoms that are the body's way of expressing the dissonance within. Yet even in disease, the joint's underlying intelligence persists. The same mechanisms that cause inflammation are also attempts at healing. The increased fluid helps clear debris. The influx of immune cells seeks to repair. The problem arises, not from the process itself, but from its persistence when the repair continues without resolution, when the body forgets to quiet its own alarm. Rheumatology's role is to restore that memory, to help the body recall the balance between defense and peace. Through medications that calm the immune response and therapies that encourage gentle movement, the joint can regain its rhythm, and the synovial symphony can play once more in harmony. The chemistry within the joint capsule is also sensitive to the larger environment of the body. Hydration, nutrition, and temperature all influence its function. The hyaluronic acid molecules that give the fluid its viscosity depend on adequate hydration. Dehydration can make the fluid more viscous and less effective. Nutrients such as omega-3 fatty acids found in natural oils can reduce inflammation and support cartilage health. while regular, moderate movement keeps the joint fluid circulating. Even emotional states can leave their subtle trace, for stress hormones influence inflammation, and relaxation helps restore equilibrium. The body, in all its complexity, is one system, and the health of a single joint reflects the harmony of the whole. In the stillness of rest, the synovial fluid continues its work in silence. It nourishes the cartilage, maintains the pressure balance within the capsule, and prepares the joint for the next moment of motion. During sleep, when the muscles relax and weight is lifted from the joints, microscopic repair processes unfold. Cells in the synovial lining renew themselves. Small areas of stress are mended, and the equilibrium of fluid and pressure is recalibrated. This nightly restoration is one of the body's quiet miracles, unnoticed yet essential for ease of movement each morning. The design of the synovial joint is a reminder of how nature values efficiency and beauty. Every part serves multiple purposes. The fluid lubricates and nourishes. The membrane protects and senses. The capsule provides both flexibility and strength. The joints are also rich in sensory nerves that detect stretch, pressure, and position. These nerve endings feed continuous information to the brain, allowing for subtle adjustments in movement and balance. Through this sensory feedback, the joints participate in consciousness itself, helping us navigate space and maintain our relationship with gravity and the world around us. When viewed through the lens of reverence rather than repair, the joint capsule becomes more than a mechanical structure. It is a living example of cooperation between materials, solid bone, fluid chemistry, and flexible tissue. It embodies the principle that strength need not be rigid, that flexibility does not mean weakness. The synovial joint's perfection lies in its balance of opposites: firmness and softness, movement and rest, independence and interdependence. It is a microcosm of the body's larger philosophy, a system that seeks harmony through constant, adaptive motion. Even as joints age and their surfaces wear, their essence remains unchanged. They continue to reflect the story of life's motion, adapting to new rhythms, finding ways to move, even within limitation. The creak of an old joint is not merely a sign of decay, but a testament to endurance, a record of a lifetime's worth of steps, gestures, and embraces. Within each sound lies the memory of movement, the whisper of the synovial symphony that has played faithfully since the first day of motion began. In the next part, we will turn our gaze toward one of the most essential elements in this story, the role of collagen, the body's thread of life, which binds bones, cartilage, tendons, and skin into a single fabric. To understand collagen is to understand the texture of strength itself, the quiet resilience that weaves the body into its enduring form. 11. The role of collagen, the thread of life. Within the crace body, there exists a substance so fundamental that it can be found in nearly every structure, woven like an invisible thread through bone, skin, cartilage, and even the walls of blood vessels. This substance is collagen, the most abundant protein in the human body, the quiet weaver of form and strength. It is, in a sense, the architecture behind the architecture, the material that gives tissues both their integrity and their grace. If one could peer through a microscope into the fibers of the body, one would see endless spirals of collagen twisting like ropes, forming a network that holds life together in ways both physical and symbolic. Collagen is not only a building material, it is a statement of balance, of resilience, of the ability to bend without breaking. To understand collagen is to glimpse the fabric of the body itself. Each molecule of collagen is a triple helix. 3 long chains of amino acids wound tightly around one another like the strands of a braid. This coiling gives it enormous tensile strength, weight for weight. Collagen is stronger than steel, yet its strength is gentle, flexible, designed to endure the constant motion of living tissues. The basic building blocks of collagen are simple amino acids, mainly glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, arranged in repeating patterns that lend stability to the structure. These molecules are produced inside cells known as fibroblasts and are then secreted into the spaces between cells, where they assemble into fibrils and fibers, forming the scaffolds that support tissues throughout the body. There are many types of collagen. Scientists have identified more than 20, but 3 dominate the human form. Type I is the most common, forming the foundation of skin, tendons, ligaments, and bone. Type 2 is found mainly in cartilage, where its finer fibers create a smooth surface for movement. Type 3 provides flexibility in the walls of arteries and in the soft tissues of organs. Each type has a specific pattern, a unique alignment suited to its purpose. In the tendons, the fibers are arranged in parallel lines to resist stretching. In the skin, they weave in crisscrossing networks to allow elasticity. In bone, they act as the framework upon which minerals such as calcium are deposited, giving the skeleton its strength and density. The variations in this single protein reflect the adaptability of life itself, the way one principle can manifest in many forms to meet different needs. Collagen's influence extends beyond structure. It plays a vital role in tissue repair and renewal. When the body is injured, fibroblasts rush to the site, producing new collagen to close wounds and restore strength. In the early stages of healing, this collagen is laid down rapidly, forming a dense, irregular network that becomes the foundation for scar tissue. Over time, the fibers reorganize, aligning themselves along the lines of stress, restoring flexibility where possible. This process is continuous, for collagen is not permanent. It is constantly being broken down and rebuilt. Every few months, much of the collagen in the body is replaced, the old fibers dismantled, and new ones spun in their place. This quiet cycle of renewal keeps the tissues resilient, adapting to age, use, and change. In rheumatology, collagen stands at the crossroads of many conditions, for it is the principal target of both wear and immunity. Diseases that affect connective tissue often involve disruptions in collagen's production or integrity. In rheumatoid arthritis, enzymes released during chronic inflammation break down collagen within the joint cartilage, leading to erosion and pain. In systemic lupus erythematosus, autoantibodies may attack the body's own collagen-containing tissues, contributing to rashes, joint pain, and organ involvement. In scleroderma, the pendulum swings in the opposite direction. Fibroblasts produce too much collagen, thickening the skin and stiffening the collagen organs. Each of these disorders reflects an imbalance in collagen's normal rhythm of formation and breakdown, a reminder that health depends not only on strength, but on flexibility and proportion. The process of collagen synthesis is delicate, dependent on many nutrients and enzymes. Vitamin C, for instance, is essential for stabilizing the collagen triple helix. Without it, the structure weakens, leading to fragile skin, bleeding gums, and slow wound healing, a condition once known as scurvy. This connection, discovered centuries ago by sailors deprived of fresh fruits and vegetables, remains one of the clearest examples of how chemistry shapes anatomy. Other factors also influence collagen health. Adequate protein intake provides the amino acid building blocks. Minerals such as copper and zinc act as cofactors in its assembly, and hormones regulate its turnover. Even sunlight, while nourishing in moderation, can damage collagen through the production of free radicals, contributing to the wrinkles and loss of elasticity that accompany aging. Thus, collagen's story is not only one of biology but of daily life. The food we eat, the care we take, and the environments we inhabit all leave their imprint upon it. Collagen's relationship with water is another aspect of its beauty. The fibers are hydrophilic, meaning they attract and bind water molecules, which gives tissues their plumpness and resilience. In the skin, this interaction creates the subtle firmness and glow that signify vitality. In cartilage, the hydration of collagen and proteoglycans allows it to absorb shocks and distribute pressure evenly. This partnership between protein and water illustrates a simple truth of biology. Strength is born not from rigidity, but from flexibility. Just as a tree bends in the wind to avoid breaking, so too does collagen's design allow the body to yield and recover from the forces it encounters. As the body ages, the balance between collagen production and degradation shifts. Fibroblasts slow their activity, and the existing fibers accumulate damage from mechanical stress and oxidation. The skin loses elasticity, joints become less supple, and the fine architecture of the tissues begins to stiffen. This is not a failure but a reflection of time's natural influence, a gradual reorganization of the body's scaffolding. Yet even in later years, collagen continues to respond to stimulation. Regular movement, good nutrition, and hydration all encourage its renewal. Gentle exercise, by placing measured stress on muscles and tendons, signals fibroblasts to produce new fibers, reinforcing the tissue. Thus, motion once again serves as nourishment, maintaining the vitality of the very substance that makes motion possible. In the broader view, collagen is more than a molecule. It is a metaphor for connection. It binds separate parts into a unified whole, ensuring that no tissue stands alone. Every organ, every muscle, every bone depends upon its quiet strength. It is the body's most faithful companion, invisible yet indispensable, enduring yet responsive. When we move, when we heal, even when we rest, collagen holds the form of who we are. Its fibers follow the contours of our lives, recording in their subtle shifts the story of our growth and adaptation. Even the sound of the word collagen carries a sense of softness and continuity, a fitting reflection of its purpose. It is the thread that weaves through us, uniting the dense with the delicate, the strong with the supple. When it fails or falters, we feel it deeply, not only as stiffness or pain, but as a reminder of how essential connection is to life. When it thrives, it gives us the quiet freedom to move, to breathe, to embrace the world without fear of falling apart. In rheumatology, the study of collagen is not just the study of structure, but the study of resilience. It teaches that strength is not an absence of vulnerability, but the capacity to recover and endure. Every fiber of collagen embodies this truth, stretching and returning, bearing weight yet remaining whole. In its endless renewal, it mirrors the rhythm of life itself: growth, stress, repair, and renewal, over and over again, without end. As we move forward, our attention turns to another equally profound subject: the experience of pain and perception, the way the body communicates when balance is lost. For pain is not only a symptom of inflammation or damage, it is a language of awareness, a signal from the body to the self. In understanding it, we come closer to understanding the meaning of healing and the quiet wisdom with which the body seeks to protect and restore itself. 12. Pain and perception. The body's whisper pain is one of the most ancient forms of communication in the living world. Long before words or gestures existed, pain spoke on behalf of the body, warning of harm, urging protection, guiding creatures toward safety. Story. A sensation that begins in the smallest nerve endings and reaches the highest levels of consciousness. Within rheumatology, pain is the most familiar companion, a whisper that can become a cry, a sensation that may fade, return, or linger quietly like an echo in the background of life. To understand pain is to understand not only the biology of nerves and tissues, but also the subtle dialogue between body and mind, awareness and memory, sensation and meaning. The experience of pain begins with detection. Scattered throughout the body are specialized nerve endings known as nociceptors. These microscopic sensors are designed to detect potential damage, heat, pressure, chemical irritation, or inflammation. When they are activated, they convert physical stimuli into electrical signals, sending them along nerve fibers toward the spinal cord. From there, the message travels upward to the brain, where it is processed and interpreted. But this journey is not a simple relay of information. It is shaped at every step by filters and feedback loops. The spinal cord can amplify or dampen the signal. The brain can heighten awareness or quiet it, and the emotions surrounding pain can transform its meaning entirely. Thus, pain is never purely physical, it is both perception and interpretation. In acute pain, the system works with precision. When you touch something hot, the nerves fire instantly, prompting withdrawal before the conscious mind even registers danger. This rapid reflex protects the tissues from greater harm. Once the threat is removed, the nociceptors calm, and the sensation fades. Acute pain serves as a guardian, teaching us to avoid what injures us. It is essential, a built-in tutor of survival. But chronic pain, the kind that defines many rheumatic conditions, is different. In chronic pain, the signal continues long after the original cause has healed or stabilized. The nervous system, once alert, fails to quiet itself. Pathways that were meant for temporary defense become permanent highways of sensitivity. The body remembers pain too well, and the whisper becomes a constant murmur. Inflammation plays a central role in this transformation. When joints, muscles, or connective tissues are inflamed, the surrounding nociceptors become hypersensitive. Chemicals such as prostaglandins, bradykinin, and cytokines released during inflammation lower the threshold for activation, making even gentle movement feel painful. This heightened sensitivity is called hyperalgesia. It is part of the body's protective instinct. By making movement uncomfortable, the body encourages rest and recovery. Yet, when inflammation persists, this protection turns counterproductive. The nerves remain sensitized, transmitting signals even when no further damage occurs. The pain becomes self-sustaining, a memory imprinted within the pathways of the nervous system. The brain, too, participates in shaping this experience. Pain is processed in multiple regions. The thalamus acts as a relay. The somatosensory cortex identifies the location. The limbic system adds emotion, and the prefrontal cortex gives it meaning. Together, these regions create the conscious experience of suffering. But the brain does more than receive. It also sends messages back down, modulating the perception of pain. This descending control can either amplify or inhibit the signals coming from below. In moments of fear or anxiety, the brain may magnify pain. In times of focus or calm, it can diminish it. The body's chemistry changes accordingly, releasing endorphins, natural opioids that bind to receptors in the nervous system, soothing discomfort and restoring balance. These molecules, produced within the brain itself, show that relief is not always external. Sometimes, the body carries within it the tools for its own comfort. In rheumatologic diseases, pain becomes more than a symptom, it becomes a companion that shapes the rhythm of daily life. For someone living with arthritis, morning stiffness may accompany the dawn, easing only with movement. For another, the deep ache of inflamed muscles or connective tissue may wax and wane with the weather, the temperature, or even emotion. Such pain is not merely a mechanical response to damage, it is intertwined with the immune system's activity, with fatigue, and with the cycles of inflammation and healing. The joints, muscles, and nerves form a living conversation, each influencing the other. When inflammation rises, pain intensifies. When it quiets, relief follows. But even in remission, traces of the sensation may linger, like an echo that reminds the nervous system of its past alarms. Pain also carries memory. The nervous system is capable of learning, and once certain pathways are activated repeatedly, they become easier to trigger again. This phenomenon, known as central sensitization, is a key feature of chronic pain. It explains why pain may persist even after the initial injury or inflammation has resolved. The spinal cord and brain, in essence, have been trained to expect pain, responding to ordinary signals as if they were threats. This insight has reshaped how rheumatologists understand persistent pain. It reveals that treatment must address not only inflammation in the joints, but also the re-education of the nervous system, the gentle unlearning of overreactive pathways through movement, therapy, and mindfulness. Emotion and perception intertwine deeply with pain. Stress, grief, and anxiety can all intensify it, while relaxation, laughter, and comfort can ease it. This does not mean that pain is imagined. The same physical stimulus can feel unbearable in one context and manageable in another, depending on the mind's state. In this way, pain becomes a profoundly personal phenomenon. No two people experience it alike, even when their physical conditions are similar. History, temperament, expectation, and meaning. Pain, as much as any other sensation, reflects who we are and how we inhabit our bodies. In the philosophy of medicine, there is a growing recognition that pain must be listened to, not simply silenced. It is a form of communication, a signal from the body to the self that something requires attention. In acute situations, the message is clear: stop, protect, rest. In chronic illness, the message becomes more complex, pointing not just to tissue damage, but to imbalance and inflammation that needs calming, a posture that needs adjustment, or a rhythm of living that needs gentleness. To listen to pain with curiosity rather than fear is to begin to translate its language, to discover what the body is truly asking for. Modern approaches to managing chronic pain reflect this holistic understanding. Medications may calm the chemical messengers of inflammation, but movement, mindfulness, and emotional support complete the picture. Gentle exercises such as stretching, swimming, or yoga help maintain mobility and keep synovial fluid flowing, reducing stiffness. Mind-body practices, like meditation and deep breathing, influence the brain's descending control systems, releasing endorphins and easing the perception of pain. Restorative sleep, proper nutrition, and social connection further modulate the body's chemistry, reminding it of safety. Healing, in this context, does not always mean eliminating pain entirely, but transforming the relationship with it, reducing its dominance, and reclaiming a sense of ease and autonomy. Pain is often described as a signal of harm, yet it can also be a teacher. It draws attention to parts of ourselves that we may have ignored, forcing awareness where there was once indifference. In this way, pain is a messenger not only of injury but of presence. It asks for recognition. The goal of healing is not to silence this messenger entirely, but to guide it toward honesty, to restore the body's ability to distinguish true distress from unnecessary alarm. When balance returns, pain becomes once again what it was meant to be, a guardian, not a captor. In the stillness of rest, when the body lies quiet and the mind drifts toward sleep, the signals of pain often soften. This is not merely because the world is silent, but because the nervous system finally allows itself to release its vigilance. The muscles relax, inflammation subsides, and the brain recalibrates its sensitivity. In these moments, the body heals in ways both measurable and mysterious. The whisper of pain becomes a gentle hum, part of the body's ongoing communication with itself, reminding us that awareness and healing are two sides of the same truth. To understand pain is to see the human body not as a battlefield of symptoms, but as a sensitive instrument of perception. It feels, it reacts, it learns, and it remembers. Pain is its language of urgency, its means of self-care, its whisper of continuity. In the next part, we will move from sensation to balance, exploring how motion and stability coexist within the musculoskeletal system, the delicate equilibrium that allows strength to meet flexibility and stillness to meet movement, in the quiet harmony of the body's design. 13. Motion and balance. the musculoskeletal ecosystem. The human body, in all its complexity, is a living landscape of motion. Beneath the skin lies a vast ecosystem in which muscles, bones, tendons, ligaments, and nerves coexist in constant conversation. Every step, every breath, every small gesture relies on a precise coordination that balances strength and flexibility, tension and release. This harmony is so seamless that most of the time we are unaware of it. Yet behind every movement is a network of forces calibrated with astonishing accuracy. This dynamic equilibrium, motion, and balance is what allows us to stand upright, to walk with grace, and to reach into the world with confidence. When it falters, whether through injury, inflammation, or fatigue, the body reminds us of its fragility, urging us to return to alignment and rhythm. Motion begins in the mind, long before muscles contract or joints move. The brain's motor cortex, like a conductor of a symphony, sends impulses through the spinal cord, branching into nerves that reach every corner of the body. These signals activate muscles in precise sequences, pulling on tendons that move bones at their joints. But motion is never a simple one-directional command. It is a dialogue between action and feedback. As muscles contract, sensory receptors embedded in tendons and joints send information back to the brain, reporting on position, pressure, and balance. This constant exchange ensures that movement remains fluid, coordinated, and responsive. Without it, even the act of standing would be impossible. The foundation of all motion is balance, both literal and metaphorical. Gravity, maintaining its center of mass within the narrow base of the feet. This balance is maintained through the collaboration of three sensory systems: the visual, the vestibular, and the proprioceptive. The eyes provide information about the environment. The inner ear senses the position of the head in space, and the proprioceptive system embedded within muscles, tendons, and joints detects internal alignment. Together, these systems form a triangulated awareness that allows us to remain upright and oriented. When one system falters, the others adapt, but harmony between them is what creates stability. This integration is effortless in health, yet profoundly delicate when disturbed. The musculoskeletal system, the structural basis of movement, can be thought of as a grand suspension bridge. The bones serve as the pillars, the muscles as the cables, and the connective tissues as the flexible joints that allow motion without collapse. Every muscle has an opposite, an agonist, that initiates movement, and an antagonist that provides control. When one contracts, the other releases. This interplay creates the balance between motion and stillness. Without it, the body would either move erratically or remain rigid. The ability to move freely depends not on strength alone, but on the ability to coordinate opposing forces. Rheumatology, in its study of joints and connective tissues, often finds itself returning to this principle: that health is not the absence of tension, but the mastery of balance. Consider the act of walking, a simple, unconscious act that nonetheless reveals the complexity of motion. Each step requires the coordinated effort of over 200 muscles and countless neural signals. One leg supports while the other swings forward. The pelvis tilts slightly to maintain alignment. The arms counterbalance to stabilize the torso, and the spine flexes gently to absorb impact. Every moment, sensors in the feet and ankles send messages upward, adjusting muscle tone and posture with each millisecond. Even the smallest disruption, an inflamed joint, a weakened muscle, a loss of sensory input, can alter this delicate choreography. The body then compensates, shifting weight, tightening certain muscles, or changing gait to maintain equilibrium. Over time, these adaptations can lead to strain elsewhere, a ripple effect that travels through the entire musculoskeletal ecosystem. This interconnectedness means that no movement is ever isolated. A stiff shoulder can affect posture through the spine, altering balance at the hips and knees. A sore foot can change the way one stands, creating tension up through the calves and lower back. In this way, the musculoskeletal system behaves like a web, each thread influencing all others. Rheumatology often observes these patterns in patients whose pain begins in one joint, but spreads through compensatory habits. Treatment, therefore, is as much about restoring alignment and flow as it is about addressing inflammation. Through movement, therapy, and awareness, the body can reestablish its original patterns of balance, returning to the fluid grace it was designed for. The muscles themselves act as guardians of posture, constantly adjusting to maintain stability. Even in stillness, they are active, engaged in tiny, unconscious contractions known as postural tone. These subtle efforts prevent the body from collapsing under its own weight. The spinal muscles, in particular, play a central role, supporting the column that holds the head and torso. The deeper layers, such as the multifidus and transversus abdominis, act not as movers but as stabilizers, maintaining alignment so that movement elsewhere can occur safely. When inflammation or fatigue weakens these stabilizers, balance falters, and other muscles must overcompensate, often leading to pain or stiffness. This cascade illustrates how intimately strength and coordination are intertwined, and why recovery requires more than rest. It requires restoration of harmony. The vestibular system, nestled within the inner ear, contains tiny crystals and fluid-filled canals that detect movement and orientation. When you tilt your head or turn, these sensors respond instantly, sending signals to the brain that adjust muscle tone throughout the body. The visual system complements this, providing external reference points that guide balance. When these systems conflict, for example, when the eyes see stability but the inner ear senses motion, as on a rocking boat, the result is dizziness or disorientation. The proprioceptive system adds the final layer, offering a sense of internal space. It tells the brain where each limb is, even without sight, allowing for coordinated motion in darkness or stillness. These systems working together create not only balance in the physical sense, but also a deep trust between mind and body, a feeling of being grounded within one's own form. Inflammatory diseases can disrupt this harmony in subtle ways. Swelling in a joint alters proprioceptive feedback, confusing the brain's perception of position. Muscle weakness or pain changes movement patterns, and fatigue diminishes coordination. The result can be instability, not only mechanical but psychological, a sense of being unsteady within oneself. Restoring balance, therefore, involves more than treating inflammation. It requires reawakening the senses of movement and grounding through gentle exercises, mindful breathing, and progressive retraining. Balance therapy, stretching, and controlled motion help remind the body of its original intelligence. The musculoskeletal ecosystem also interacts with emotion. Posture is a mirror of inner state, the bowed shoulders of fatigue, the lifted chest of confidence, the tension of anxiety carried in the neck and jaw. Conversely, changing posture can influence mood. Standing tall, breathing deeply, and moving rhythmically can calm the nervous system, reducing stress hormones and encouraging relaxation. In this way, the mechanics of balance and the balance of mind are not separate. The body expresses emotion as motion. Healing one often supports the other. This insight has deepened the approach to chronic pain and fatigue, encouraging treatments that integrate physical, mental, and emotional awareness rather than addressing each in isolation. The equilibrium of motion is not static, it is dynamic, constantly adjusting to internal and external forces. Even when sitting or standing still, small corrections occur every moment. The ankles sway, the spine shifts, the muscles adjust in imperceptible pulses. These micro-movements are signs of life, a reminder that balance is never achieved once and for all but maintained through continuous adaptation. The musculoskeletal system thrives in this gentle state of flux. Like the surface of a lake, it appears calm, but beneath the surface, countless small currents maintain its stillness. When harmony is lost through injury, illness, or age, the body often finds new ways to adapt. A damaged joint may stiffen to protect itself. Muscles may tighten to compensate for weakness. These adaptations, while protective, can eventually limit freedom of movement. Rheumatology seeks to understand and guide this process, helping the body to rediscover its natural pathways of motion. The goal is not merely to return to what was before, but to cultivate resilience, to build a new balance that honors both strength and limitation. Motion and balance together form the language of life. Every organism, from the smallest microbe to the most complex human, relies on movement to survive. In us, this movement takes on meaning. It becomes expression, intention, creation. To move is to participate in existence, to dance with gravity and time. Balance, meanwhile, gives movement its grace, transforming effort into ease. The two are inseparable, as breath is to air, as sound is to silence. The musculoskeletal system, in its quiet intelligence, reminds us that harmony is not stillness, but flow, the ability to adapt, to sway, and to return again to center. As we continue our journey through the inner landscapes of the body, the next part will guide us into the realm of diagnosis, the art of listening to the body's language, of observing the subtle signs through which it communicates imbalance and restoration. For every ache, every stiffness, every whisper of fatigue is a message, and the task of medicine is not merely to correct, but to understand, to hear the story that the body is trying to tell. 14. Diagnosis. Listening to the body's story. The process of diagnosis in rheumatology is unlike that in any other field of medicine. It is not the swift recognition of a single sign or symptom, nor the discovery of a single culprit hidden within the body. It is instead an act of deep listening, a careful decoding of the body's whispers. For the conditions that dwell within the realm of rheumatology rarely announce themselves clearly. They evolve slowly, unfolding over months or years, shifting from one form to another. To diagnose them is to listen not just to what is seen in the joints or measured in the blood, but to the rhythm of a person's entire physiology. It is to read a story written in movement, sensation, and time. Every diagnosis begins with a conversation. The patient describes the sensations that have crept quietly into daily life, the morning stiffness that lingers longer than before, the ache that moves from one joint to another, the fatigue that arrives even after rest. These details, though subjective, are the foundation of understanding. In them lies the first clue to the body's internal state. The physician listens, not only to the words, but to the pauses between them, to the tone of voice, to the way the body shifts as it speaks. The language of pain is often subtle, and the art of diagnosis begins with empathy, the ability to sense not just the physical, but the emotional landscape of suffering. From conversation, the process moves to observation. The physician studies posture, the way a person walks or rises from a chair, the way hands are held or moved. Swelling may be visible in a joint. Warmth may radiate from inflamed tissues, or muscles may appear tense from guarding against pain. Sometimes the signs are faint, a slight asymmetry, a tenderness at touch, a restriction of motion so small it might go unnoticed by anyone but an experienced eye. The goal is not to find one defining feature, but to gather a constellation of clues that, together, suggest a pattern. Physical examination is both science and art. The physician gently moves each joint, feeling for resistance, crepitus, or instability. The texture of the skin, the tone of the muscles, and even the temperature of the hands can offer insight into systemic processes. The act of touch in medicine so often reduced to routine, carries a deep significance in rheumatology. It is a dialogue between two living systems. Through touch, the physician perceives the body's story not in words but in sensation, translating stiffness into structure, tenderness into meaning. Yet observation alone is not enough. The inner workings of inflammation, immunity, and tissue change must also be explored through laboratory and imaging studies. Blood tests offer a window into the chemistry of disease. Markers such as erythrocyte sedimentation rate, ESR, and C-reactive protein, CRP, reveal the presence of inflammation, showing how actively the body's immune system is engaged. Autoantibody tests like rheumatoid factor or antinuclear antibodies serve as signatures of immune activity turned inward. These are not definitive answers but clues, pieces of a puzzle that must be fitted together with the patient's story. The art of diagnosis lies in synthesis, the ability to weave laboratory data into the fabric of lived experience, rather than to let it stand alone. Imaging adds another layer to this exploration. X-rays reveal the architecture of the bones, showing erosion, narrowing of joint spaces, or the formation of osteophytes that mark degenerative change. Ultrasound can detect inflammation in soft tissues, the subtle swelling of synovial membranes, or fluid accumulation invisible to the naked eye. Magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, offers even greater detail, revealing the internal structures of cartilage, tendons, and bone marrow. Yet even the most advanced imaging cannot capture pain itself, or fatigue, or the sense of heaviness that patients describe. Machines can see, but they cannot listen. That is why technology must always be guided by interpretation, by the human ability to see meaning in patterns and to connect the visible with the invisible. Rheumatologic diseases rarely follow a single pattern. Two people with the same condition may present entirely differently. One may experience swollen joints and clear laboratory findings, while another may show only fatigue and subtle symptoms for years. Diagnosis, therefore, requires patience. The physician must be willing to live with uncertainty, to observe the evolution of signs over time. Some diagnoses unfold like a slow dawn, becoming clear only as new patterns emerge. This process can be frustrating for both doctor and patient, yet it reflects the reality of how these diseases develop not as sudden invasions, but as gradual imbalances in the body's inner harmony. The relationship between physician and patient becomes a partnership in this search for understanding. The patient learns to observe the body's fluctuations, to notice what worsens pain, what brings relief, how sleep, stress, and weather affect symptoms. These observations, shared openly, enrich the physician's understanding. Diagnosis thus becomes a collaboration, a co-authored story rather than a verdict handed down from above. This mutual awareness deepens trust and often provides clues that no test could reveal. In the background of every diagnostic journey lies the challenge of distinguishing one condition from another. Many rheumatologic diseases overlap in their manifestations. Fatigue, stiffness, pain, and inflammation are shared languages spoken by many different disorders. The distinction between rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, between polymyositis and fibromyalgia, often depends on nuances, a particular pattern of joint involvement, the presence of specific antibodies, or the systemic reach of symptoms. To navigate this complexity, the rheumatologist must think in patterns, not absolutes. The body is not a machine that malfunctions in isolation. It is a living network whose disturbances ripple across systems. Despite all efforts, a definitive diagnosis cannot be made. In these moments, the goal shifts from labeling to understanding. Treatment may begin based on symptoms rather than names, with the recognition that healing can occur even when the exact cause remains unknown. Over time, as the story continues to unfold, the pattern often reveals itself. Medicine, like nature, rewards patience. Beyond tests and technologies, Diagnosis in rheumatology also requires intuition, a sense of subtle coherence that cannot be taught but is cultivated through experience. This intuition arises from years of listening to bodies and stories, of recognizing the quiet rhythms of disease and recovery. It is the ability to see not only what is happening but why, to perceive the connections between joint pain and immune imbalance, between fatigue and inflammation, between stress and flare. This form of knowing, though grounded in science, has the quality of art. It transforms diagnosis from a mechanical task into a deeply human encounter. For the patient, receiving a diagnosis can be both a relief and a reckoning. It offers an explanation, a name to the uncertainty that has lingered. Yet it also marks the beginning of a new journey, one that involves understanding the condition, adapting to its rhythms, and learning to live in partnership with the body once more. A good diagnosis does not end with a label. It opens the door to awareness, treatment, and acceptance. It reframes suffering as something that can be understood, managed, and, in many ways, softened. Ultimately, diagnosis in rheumatology is not the discovery of disease, but the recognition of imbalance. It is the physician's way of saying, this is where the body's harmony has shifted, and this is how we can begin to restore it. Every swollen joint, every elevated marker, every quiet ache becomes part of a narrative, a story, not of defeat, but of adaptation. For the body, even in its distress, is always seeking equilibrium, always moving toward repair. In this gentle understanding, diagnosis becomes more than a medical act. It becomes a form of empathy. It honors the body's wisdom and the patient's experience. It invites cooperation rather than correction, partnership rather than command. It reminds us that beneath every symptom lies the same truth. The body is trying to communicate, to find balance, to heal in the only way it knows how. In the next part, we will move from discovery to care, exploring the philosophy and practice of treatment, the ways in which modern medicine and ancient wisdom combine to restore movement, reduce pain, and rekindle harmony within the body's intricate design. 15. Treatment and healing, restoring harmony. Treatment in rheumatology is not a single event, but a long, evolving relationship between the patient, the body, and the art of medicine itself. It is not about silencing symptoms alone, but about guiding the body back toward balance, toward the quiet rhythm that health represents. The goal is not to defeat the body's processes, but to remind them of their proper direction, to temper inflammation without extinguishing the fire of life that burns within every cell. Healing, in this realm, is a collaboration. It happens not only in laboratories or clinics, but within the quiet persistence of the human spirit, in the daily acts of care and patience that accompany recovery. Every treatment plan begins with understanding. In rheumatology, where many conditions are chronic and systemic, treatment must respect the whole person. It must address inflammation, immune activity, pain, fatigue, and emotional well-being simultaneously. Each component interacts with the others. The inflammation that swells a joint may also cloud the mind with fatigue. The pain that restricts movement may lead to isolation, which in turn deepens the body's stress response. To heal one part, all must be considered. Medicine here becomes a balancing act, a blending of precision and compassion, of science and sensitivity. The first pillar of treatment often involves controlling inflammation, for it is the central engine of most rheumatic diseases. Anti-inflammatory drugs, such as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, provide relief from pain and swelling, reducing the immediate burden of discomfort. Corticosteroids, more potent and systemic, can calm the immune storm that drives inflammation, offering rapid control during acute flare-ups. Yet their use requires care and respect for the same hormones that quell inflammation can. In excess, alter the body's natural rhythms. The physician's art lies in finding the right balance enough to restore peace to the tissues, but not so much as to disrupt the harmony of the body's chemistry. Beyond these first-line treatments lies a deeper realm of therapy: the disease-modifying antirheumatic drugs, often known as DMARDs. These agents, such as methotrexate, sulfasalazine, or hydroxychloroquine, work at the level of the immune system itself, not to suppress it entirely, but to retrain it, to remind it of what belongs to the self and what does not. They act slowly, gently shifting the immune balance over weeks and months, turning off the chronic alarms that have been sounding without cause. When these fail or prove insufficient, biologic therapies come into play, medications that target specific molecules, such as tumor necrosis factor or interleukin-6, the very messengers that perpetuate inflammation. These treatments, born from decades of research, are examples of modern medicine's precision. They quiet the storm without extinguishing the sun. But pharmacology, though powerful, is only one part of healing. The body does not exist in isolation from mind or movement, and the journey toward equilibrium depends equally on how one lives, breathes, and rests. Physical therapy, gentle exercise, and stretching become acts of restoration. Movement, when done with mindfulness, nourishes the joints through circulation of synovial fluid, strengthens muscles that support the skeleton, and reminds the nervous system of fluidity. To remain still for too long is to invite stiffness. To move without awareness is to risk strain. The art lies in the middle ground: motion as medicine, balance as therapy. Aquatic exercises, yoga, and slow, controlled stretching allow freedom without force, inviting ease back into the tissues. In this way, the body rediscovers its own grace. Rest is equally essential. In chronic illness, fatigue is not mere tiredness. It is the body's signal that resources have been depleted. Healing requires energy, and energy requires stillness. Deep, restorative sleep allows the immune system to recalibrate, hormones to rebalance, and tissues to repair. Yet rest must be genuine, not the restless idleness of anxiety, but the calm surrender of restoration. Gentle, breathing, meditation, and mindfulness can quiet the nervous system, reducing the constant stream of stress signals that amplify inflammation. These practices bridge ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience, showing that the mind's peace translates directly into the body's chemistry. The hormones of calm, endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, counterbalance the chemistry of stress, softening both perception and process. Nutrition, too, becomes a form of therapy, for every cell in the body is built from what we eat. A diet rich in whole foods, abundant in fruits, vegetables, natural oils, and lean proteins, supports the body's natural anti-inflammatory pathways. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish, flax, and chia seeds help reduce cytokine production, while antioxidants in colorful plants protect tissues from oxidative stress. Avoiding excessive processed foods, sugars, and trans fats helps prevent the subtle metabolic inflammation that can worsen pain and fatigue. Hydration, often overlooked, is vital to maintaining joint health. The goal is not perfection but nourishment, to eat in a way that sustains equilibrium and honors the body's needs. Equally important is the management of pain, not merely through medication, but through understanding its nature. Pain, as explored earlier, is a signal, a language of imbalance. To fight it blindly is to silence a messenger. To listen to it is to learn its story. Pain management in rheumatology often combines pharmacological and holistic approaches, analgesics to dull the sharpest edges, physical therapy to restore movement, relaxation techniques to calm perception, and sometimes cognitive therapies to reshape the brain's relationship with chronic discomfort. The aim is not to erase sensation entirely, but to reframe it, to teach the body and mind that safety has returned, that vigilance may rest, Healing also depends profoundly on emotional well-being. Living with chronic illness can erode confidence and bring feelings of frustration, grief, or isolation. The unpredictability of symptoms can make the future feel uncertain. Support, therefore, becomes a form of medicine. Support from physicians, from family, from friends, and from communities of shared experience. Conversation and compassion remind the patient that they are not defined by illness but accompanied by it. In these connections, hope is sustained, and healing continues in quiet ways that cannot be measured by blood tests or scans. The human spirit, when supported, strengthens the immune system itself. This has been observed in countless studies and experienced by millions throughout history. Modern rheumatology has embraced this integrative vision of care. The best treatments combine evidence-based medicine with the recognition of individuality. What works for one person may not for another, and the journey toward wellness often requires adjustment and patience. The physician becomes a guide rather than a commander, walking beside the patient rather than in front. Together they navigate the landscape of treatment, testing, response, and renewal. Success is not measured only in remission, but in improved quality of life and the return of ease, the quieting of fatigue, the rediscovery of movement and joy. Healing, in its truest form, is not the erasure of illness, but the restoration of harmony. It is the recognition that even within limitation, life continues to flow with meaning and beauty. The body, though affected by disease, remains wise and capable of adaptation. Every system seeks equilibrium. Every cell strives to repair. Every heartbeat signals the body's devotion to life. Rheumatology, at its core, is the study of this devotion, the science of the body's efforts to heal itself, and the ways we can assist in that process. In the end, the journey of treatment is deeply personal. It asks for patience, consistency, and faith, not blind faith in medicine alone, but trust in the body's resilience. There are times when pain will return, when progress will feel slow, but beneath those fluctuations, the body continues to adjust and learn. Healing is not a straight path, but a spiral circling closer and closer to balance with each turn. As we move toward the closing chapters of this exploration, we will look beyond medicine itself to the deeper meaning of living with chronic conditions, the ways in which adaptation, acceptance, and self-awareness become forms of healing, no less vital than drugs or therapy. For in understanding the rhythms of our bodies, we begin to understand the rhythm of life itself, a rhythm that continues, softly and steadily, through every challenge, every breath, and every quiet return to harmony. 16. Living with chronic conditions, the art of adaptation. To live with a chronic condition is to live with constancy and change at once. It is to wake each morning into a body that feels familiar yet unpredictable. To measure time, not only in hours and days, but in flares and remissions, ease and discomfort. Chronic illness, especially within rheumatology, does not simply touch the joints or tissues, it touches the rhythm of living itself. It reshapes how one moves, plans, rests, and even how one perceives the self. Yet within this continuous challenge lies an opportunity for profound adaptation. Living with chronic illness is not merely endurance. It is an art, a daily practice of balance, resilience, and awareness that transforms limitation into understanding. The first step in adaptation is acceptance, a word that is often misunderstood. Acceptance is not surrender, nor is it resignation. It is a clear acknowledgement of reality, an act of seeing the body as it truly is, rather than as one wishes it to be. This kind of seeing is quiet and honest. It allows one to move forward, not in defiance of the condition, but in partnership with it. Chronic illness, when viewed through this lens, becomes less an enemy and more a companion, difficult, yes, but instructive. It teaches patience where haste once ruled, presence where distraction prevailed, Acceptance does not mean giving up hope for improvement. It means creating peace in the space between suffering and healing. Daily life with a rheumatologic condition requires rhythm, a balance between movement and rest, effort and ease. The body thrives on consistency, yet it also demands flexibility. Some days, the joints may move freely, energy may be abundant, and the mind may feel clear. Other days bring heaviness, stiffness, or fatigue that invites rest. Learning to listen to these fluctuations is a form of wisdom. To push too hard against the body's signals invites flare. To retreat completely leads to deconditioning and stagnation. The art lies in learning the subtle language of the body, the difference between pain that warns and pain that heals, between fatigue that signals overexertion and the kind that simply asks for gentleness. Simple rituals, stretching in the morning, taking medications at regular times, walking at a steady pace, sleeping and waking in rhythm help create stability. These small consistencies give the body predictability, and predictability fosters calm. Even the act of preparing meals with care, of choosing nourishing foods, becomes part of a quiet discipline that supports healing. Chronic illness demands mindfulness not as a luxury but as a necessity, for awareness is what allows one to live skillfully within changing limits. The emotional journey of chronic illness is often as complex as the physical one. There may be frustration when the body refuses to cooperate, grief for abilities once taken for granted, or fear of the future's uncertainty. These emotions are not signs of weakness but natural responses to change. Over time, many people discover that emotions themselves, like pain, come in waves. They rise, peak, and fall, and through awareness, they can be witnessed without being overwhelming. Practices such as journaling, meditation, or talking openly with trusted companions can transform emotional weight into understanding. When the inner life is acknowledged, the outer symptoms often soften, for the body and mind reflect one another constantly. Relationships, too, must adapt. Chronic illness can alter the dynamics of partnership, family, and friendship. Others may not always understand the invisible nature of fatigue or pain. They may see the surface of health and miss the effort beneath. Communication becomes essential, clear, gentle, honest communication about needs, limitations, and gratitude. Support systems, whether made of loved ones or community groups, become lifelines, offering both empathy and perspective. It is within these circles of connection that one finds the courage to continue, to share the small victories, and to endure the more difficult days. No one is meant to walk the path of illness alone, for healing flourishes in the warmth of shared understanding. Work and daily responsibilities often present another layer of challenge. Fatigue, flares, and appointments can disrupt routine employment or household tasks. Here, adaptation becomes both practical and creative. It may involve pacing activities, breaking large tasks into smaller ones, using ergonomic tools, alternating sitting and standing, or planning rest between moments of effort. Many discover that by reorganizing their environment, they can conserve energy and reduce strain. Acceptance of these adjustments can bring unexpected freedom. Rather than fighting the body, one learns to collaborate with it. Productivity takes on a new meaning, not measured by output alone, but by sustainability and well-being, and more an unfolding moment-by-moment experience. Living well with such conditions means finding meaning not in what one cannot do, but in what remains possible. It may mean noticing the comfort of a warm cup of tea, the quiet pleasure of sunlight through a window, the satisfaction of moving without pain for a few steps longer than yesterday. These small moments, often overlooked in the rush of ordinary life, become sources of grounding. They reveal that even within limitation, life continues to offer beauty and peace. The practice of mindfulness takes on a unique role here. To live mindfully is to inhabit the present with awareness rather than resistance. Pain may still be present, but attention transforms its quality. When one breathes through discomfort, Observing it without judgment, the nervous system calms, the brain releases endorphins, muscles soften, and the perception of pain changes. Mindfulness also helps loosen the tight bond between identity and illness. One begins to realize, I have this condition, rather than I am this condition. This subtle shift restores dignity and possibility, reminding the individual that the self is larger than any diagnosis. Spirituality, in whatever form it takes, often deepens in those who live with chronic illness, whether found in religion, nature, art, or simple presence. The sense of connection to something greater than the self provides strength. Illness can strip away illusions of control, but in doing so, it opens a space for gratitude, humility, and wonder. Many describe discovering a new appreciation for the body not despite its struggles, but because of them. The body, after all, continues to serve, to breathe, to heal in countless unseen ways each day. It remains loyal, even when burdened. This realization turns frustration into reverence, transforming the body from a battleground into a teacher. In the medical journey, flare-ups and remissions create a rhythm that mirrors the tides. There are times of effort and times of rest, times when intervention is needed and times when stillness suffices. Recognizing these cycles helps reduce fear, for each flare eventually softens, and each remission offers renewal. Healing, in the chronic sense, is rarely linear. It is a dance of progress and return. Within this rhythm lies hope, not as a distant goal, but as a living thread woven through every moment of endurance. Resilience, the quiet strength that grows from adaptation, is perhaps the most profound outcome of living with chronic conditions. It is not the absence of hardship, but the ability to move through it with grace. Resilience manifests in patience, in humor that lightens difficult days, in the decision to keep engaging with life even when it hurts. Over time, many people find that resilience becomes second nature, not forced but cultivated like a well-tended garden. It does not eliminate pain, but it ensures that pain never becomes the whole story. Ultimately, living with chronic illness is about finding harmony within change. It is the continual act of balancing acceptance with effort, patience with persistence, solitude with connection. It is about learning that healing is not always the return to what was, but the discovery of a new way to live, a way that honors the body's limits while celebrating its remarkable capacity to adapt. Those who live this way often develop a depth of compassion and understanding that extends beyond themselves. They become living testaments to endurance and wisdom, reminders that life, even when altered, remains beautiful. As we move to the final part of this journey, we will turn our attention to reflection, to the deeper unity between body and spirit, health and awareness, suffering and growth. For rheumatology, at its heart, is not merely the study of joints and tissues, but of life in motion, of resilience embodied. The closing chapter will explore how, through understanding, the science of the body becomes the art of living an endless conversation between movement and stillness, between healing and being. 17. Reflection and wholeness, the harmony of being. As the journey through rheumatology reaches its quiet conclusion, the path begins to widen once again beyond anatomy, beyond chemistry, beyond even medicine itself. What remains is the simple truth that beneath every symptom and every diagnosis lies a living human being, composed of movement and thought, of memory and meaning. The study of joints, muscles, and connective tissues reveals much about how the body works, but it also points towards something deeper, the unity of all these systems, the seamless harmony that makes life possible. To reflect upon the science of the body is, in the end, to reflect upon the nature of being, to understand that health is not a static state of perfection, but an ever-evolving balance between resilience and rest. The body, when seen with quiet reverence, is a microcosm of the world itself. Its systems rise and fall like tides. Its rhythms echo those of day and night, and its cycles mirror the seasons. Inflammation flares like a storm, bringing both destruction and renewal. Healing follows like spring, rebuilding what was worn or weakened. Even aging, so often seen as decline, is simply the deepening of rhythm, the slow settling of movement into wisdom. Every process within us, from the pulsing of blood to the regeneration of cells, participates in this timeless dance. To be aware of it is to recognize that we are not separate from nature's balance, but expressions of it. Rheumatology, in its careful study of balance and motion, becomes not only a medical discipline, but a meditation on harmony itself. Wholeness, in this sense, is not the absence of illness, but the presence of integration. It is the recognition that the physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects of life are woven together. Pain in a joint may influence thought. A moment of peace in the mind may ease inflammation. The warmth of compassion may quiet pain more deeply than any drug. The boundaries between body and mind are permeable, fluid, shifting. Modern science increasingly acknowledges what ancient traditions have long known, that well-being arises not from control but from relationship, from the dialogue between all parts of the self. Healing is the restoration of that dialogue, the rediscovery of connection after disarray. Those who live with chronic illness often come to embody this understanding most deeply. In learning to live with uncertainty, they develop a profound appreciation for balance, for the small but meaningful acts that keep life aligned. A slow walk in the morning sun, a careful stretch before rest, a moment of gratitude before sleep. These become sacred gestures, threads in the fabric of wholeness. Where once the goal was to be free from pain entirely, the new goal becomes to live fully within what is. There is a quiet wisdom in this, a peace that grows not from victory but from acceptance. The body may remain imperfect, yet the spirit becomes steady, and through that steadiness, the whole being begins to heal. Reflection, when it arises, is a form of medicine in itself. It softens the edges of striving and brings gentleness to the act of living. To reflect is to pause and to see the pattern of one's own life, the lessons carried within every moment of struggle. For those who have endured the slow rhythm of rheumatic illness, reflection reveals how strength has changed shape, how endurance has replaced urgency, how compassion has replaced frustration, how stillness has become a teacher. These shifts are not cures in the conventional sense, but they are transformations, and they are no less miraculous. They show that healing occurs on many levels, some visible, others hidden deep within the quiet chambers of the mind and heart. The science of the joints, the chemistry of inflammation, the anatomy of connective tissue, these are the visible threads of knowledge. But when woven together with experience and awareness, they form something greater, understanding. The physician who listens not only to the body but also to the person, and the patient who listens not only to pain but to what it teaches, both participate in this understanding. Together they form the full circle of healing, the meeting of science and spirit, of analysis and empathy. In this way, medicine transcends its mechanical beginnings and becomes a dialogue between two forms of knowing, the external and the internal, the measurable and the felt. Wholeness also invites a redefinition of strength. True strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the ability to live openly within it. The body that has known pain also knows patience. The person who has endured fatigue has discovered perseverance. Every limitation becomes a mirror that reflects the infinite capacity of the human will. The connective tissues that bind the body together become metaphors for the unseen connections that bind life itself between self and other, between suffering and compassion, between mortality and meaning. To live with illness is, in a profound way, to live with awareness. Every movement becomes deliberate, every gesture mindful, every breath an affirmation of presence. Science, when pursued with humility, leads naturally to awe. The more we learn about the molecular intricacies of the immune system, the regeneration of collagen, or the fluid intelligence of the synovial joint, the more we see the quiet intelligence of life itself. Each cell, each signal, each adaptation reveals purpose. The immune system's vigilance, even when misguided, is still an act of devotion, the body's tireless commitment to survival. In the same way, the heart's steady rhythm, the breath's constant return, the body's nightly repair during sleep, all speak of a harmony that continues despite, and sometimes because of, imperfection. It is this realization that turns knowledge into reverence and medicine into gratitude. Illness can feel isolating, but it is, in truth, one of the most universal human experiences. Every person, at some point, encounters limitation, whether through age, injury, or circumstance. The lessons learned through chronic illness, patience, empathy, adaptability become gifts to others, extending far beyond the boundaries of the individual body. In this way, those who live with rheumatic conditions become teachers, demonstrating how to find peace within change, how to continue moving even when stillness is required, how to find light within endurance. Their wisdom becomes part of the collective understanding of what it means to be human. Wholeness, then, is not an end, but a process, a constant recalibration, a return to balance, again and again. It exists in every act of care, in every breath taken with awareness, in every choice to rest or move with kindness. Medicine supports this process, science informs it, but ultimately, it is the consciousness of the person that completes it. Healing begins where attention meets compassion, where understanding replaces fear. It is a quiet, continuous unfolding, much like life itself. In the final reflection, rheumatology reveals its deepest lesson, that the human body, in all its fragility, is not flawed but beautifully complex, capable of both suffering and renewal. Every joint, every muscle, every connective thread is part of a greater whole, a system that seeks harmony through movement and rest, through resilience and release. The same intelligence that allows the immune system to defend and the tissue to heal also allows the heart to forgive, the mind to adapt, and the spirit to endure. To study this, to live with it, or to treat it, is to participate in the mystery of life's continuity. The story of rheumatology, at its quietest level, becomes a story of compassion, the body's compassion for itself, and humanity's compassion for one another. In that compassion lies the true meaning of healing, not the erasure of pain, but the discovery of peace within it, not the end of struggle, but the grace to move through it with awareness. The body, ever loyal, continues its silent work of repair. The mind learns patience. The spirit finds equilibrium. Together they form a symphony, the harmony of being, both fragile and eternal. And so, as the journey concludes, we return to stillness. Within that stillness, motion continues quietly, unseen but ceaseless, like the pulse beneath the skin or the tide beyond the shore. The body, though imperfect, remains whole. The mind, though tested, remains luminous. And the spirit, through understanding, finds what it has always sought, not escape from the body, but harmony within it. In that harmony, the science of rheumatology finds its most human truth, that to live is to move, to adapt, and to heal, endlessly, in rhythm with the eternal pulse of life itself. 18. The continuum of life, renewal through the body. When we reach the quiet horizon of reflection, the story of rheumatology broadens beyond medicine. It becomes a story about the enduring continuity of life itself, about the body's ceaseless capacity to adapt, repair, and renew. Every joint, every fiber, every cell is a participant in this cycle of transformation. What begins as physiology becomes philosophy, and what once was viewed as disorder can now be seen as part of the body's ongoing conversation with existence. To study the musculoskeletal and immune systems is to witness, in the most intimate way, how life sustains itself through change. The body is not static. It is a river, always flowing, reshaping itself moment by moment, guided by patterns that have existed since the dawn of evolution. In this river, renewal is the constant undercurrent. Each day, cells die and are reborn. Collagen is broken down and reformed. The immune system adjusts its vigilance, learning from every encounter. The very structure of the body is temporary, yet eternal in its process. Even the bones, seemingly unchanging, are in quiet transformation. Osteoclasts dissolving old mineral layers, while osteoblasts lay down new ones. In the span of a decade, almost every cell in the human body is replaced. The self we inhabit is thus both ancient and new, carrying the memory of the past while living in the freshness of the present. This continuity gives the body its resilience, its ability to heal after injury or adapt after illness. The diseases that rheumatology seeks to understand are not foreign invaders, but variations within this process, moments when the rhythm of renewal becomes irregular, when the balance between creation and destruction leans too far to one side. The immune system lies at the heart of this dynamic. Its vigilance, though sometimes misguided, is an expression of life's fundamental desire to preserve itself. Autoimmune conditions, such as those that define rheumatology, remind us of the delicate balance between defense and harmony. They show us that even the act of protection can turn inward, that too much care can become confusion. Yet within these disorders is the same impulse that drives healing, the instinct to maintain integrity. The challenge of medicine and of life itself is to restore clarity to this impulse, to help the body remember what belongs to it and what does not. When this remembering occurs, balance returns, not as perfection but as peace. Every aspect of the body's renewal depends on communication. Cells speak in chemical languages, sending messages through hormones, neurotransmitters, and cytokines. This dialogue is continuous and precise, ensuring that every part knows what the others are doing. When the body suffers, this communication becomes strained. Inflammation, fatigue, and pain are the signals of misalignment. Healing begins when communication is restored, when the tissues once again listen to each other's needs. This mirrors the larger human experience, where harmony among individuals, societies, or even thoughts arises only through clear connection. The body, in this way, becomes a teacher of empathy, showing that unity depends not on sameness, but on understanding. To live in awareness of this interconnectedness is to see the body not as a machine, but as an ecosystem, a landscape of countless living relationships. Within it, each system depends on every other. The muscles require the bones for leverage. The bones rely on the marrow for strength. The connective tissue binds them in cooperation, and the blood nourishes them all. Even the immune cells that patrol for danger depend on nutrients carried from distant organs. There is no independence here, only interdependence. This realization brings humility, for it reminds us that health is never a solitary achievement but a collective one. The well-being of each cell contributes to the harmony of the whole, just as the well-being of each person contributes to the health of the world. In the quiet cycles of renewal, rest plays a vital role. During sleep, the body performs its deepest repairs. Hormones are released to rebuild muscle and bone, the immune system recalibrates, and the brain clears away metabolic waste. This nightly restoration is as important as movement itself. The body, like the seasons, thrives on alternation, day and night, effort and rest, inflammation and resolution. In rheumatologic conditions, Where inflammation lingers, the lesson of rest becomes even more essential. The body's healing cannot be forced. It unfolds in rhythm, with patience and care. Adaptation, too, is a cornerstone of renewal. The body learns from every experience, adjusting its responses to meet new challenges. Muscles grow stronger with use, joints remodel in response to motion, and the immune system remembers every pathogen it encounters. Even in disease, adaptation continues. When inflammation damages one tissue, other systems compensate. When pain limits movement, the nervous system develops new pathways for stability. These adaptations may sometimes bring imbalance, but they also testify to life's creativity, the body's unending capacity to find a way forward. Healing, then, is not a return to what was before, but the emergence of something new, built from both loss and learning. On a deeper level, the continuum of life extends beyond the individual. Our cells, our chemistry, even our capacity for thought, are part of a lineage that reaches back through time. The collagen that holds our tissues together is shaped by the same molecular patterns that built the bodies of early mammals and fish. The immune system's memory is an echo of the defenses that evolved in ancient organisms to survive in shifting environments. Is to glimpse the history of life written in our bones, our joints, and our blood, the pain of inflammation, the healing of wounds, the resilience of connective tissue, all are ancient songs, carried forward by the body as a living memory of survival. This awareness of continuity transforms how we understand both illness and recovery. It invites rest, nourishment, and reflection. The therapies developed by science, whether anti-inflammatory drugs, physical rehabilitation, or dietary adjustments, are ways of supporting this conversation. Yet, even as medicine intervenes, the real work of healing happens within, in the quiet intelligence of cells repairing and reorganizing. The physician's role is to assist, to align with the body's intentions, not to command them. Healing is collaboration, not conquest. In the broader sense, the study of renewal within the body mirrors the renewal of the self. Just as tissues regenerate, so too can our inner life heal from loss, change, and pain. Chronic illness often becomes a catalyst for this deeper renewal. It asks difficult questions about identity, purpose, and connection. It strips away illusions of control and reveals what truly matters. Many who live with such conditions describe discovering new depths of awareness, new forms of gratitude, and new ways of relating to others. Illness, though often seen as limitation, can also become a doorway, a passage into greater understanding of what it means to live with grace and authenticity. The continuum of life does not end with the body. Each moment of awareness, each act of kindness, each adaptation adds to the larger movement of humanity and nature. The body teaches us that life is never static. It is always renewing itself through motion, through exchange, through the balance of giving and receiving. Our very breath participates in this cycle. The oxygen we take in becoming part of our blood, the carbon dioxide we release, nourishing the plants that in turn sustain us. In this endless exchange, we find evidence of unity. The same patterns that sustain a cell sustain a forest, an ocean, a planet. As we reflect upon this, the study of rheumatology of joints, connective tissues, and the immune system becomes something far more expansive. It becomes a meditation on relationship, on balance, and on renewal. The body, though finite, embodies the infinite rhythm of life's unfolding. Each heartbeat, each step, each healing process is a small affirmation of continuity. The pain that once seemed meaningless gains context as part of the body's learning, its evolution toward harmony. The patient, the physician, and the scientist all become participants in this grand dialogue, contributing to the shared story of how life sustains itself through change. In the end, the continuum of life is the story of resilience, the quiet insistence of being to remain, to adapt, to find balance in motion. It carries within it the blueprint of survival and the poetry of renewal. Rheumatology, through its careful study of pain and motion, reminds us that within fragility lies strength, and within imperfection lies growth. The body does not strive for permanence, it strives for harmony, and in that striving, it reveals the essence of life itself. To understand this is to find peace, not the peace of stillness, but the peace of knowing that movement, change, and renewal are the natural and eternal rhythm of all that lives. 19. The body as a teacher. Lessons from within. When we look deeply into the study of rheumatology, beyond the laboratory findings and anatomical diagrams, we begin to see something far more profound: the body as an endless source of wisdom. It teaches through sensation, through rhythm, through the quiet persistence of its processes. Every ache, every moment of ease, every pulse of inflammation carries a message, a lesson in awareness and humility. The human body is not a mere vessel to be managed. It is a teacher, guiding us toward understanding the nature of balance, impermanence, and care. To study it is to learn not only the science of life, but also the art of living within its limits and possibilities. The first lesson the body teaches is patience. Healing does not rush. It unfolds in time. A joint inflamed by arthritis will not calm instantly. A muscle weakened by fatigue regains its strength only through steady practice and rest. The body lives in rhythm, not haste. This rhythm cannot be commanded, only respected. Modern life, with its constant urgency, often forgets this truth. Yet when illness arrives, especially a chronic one, it slows everything down. What once seemed pressing becomes distant. What once was ignored becomes central. Pain demands attention. Fatigue demands stillness. In this slowing, life takes on a different pace, one that more closely mirrors the body's own. The lesson is clear. Renewal requires patience, and patience is not waiting passively, but engaging with time consciously, allowing nature to proceed in its own measured way. The second lesson is awareness. The body communicates in whispers long before it shouts. The stiffness in the morning, the subtle fatigue after exertion, the faint swelling in a finger, these are early signs that something within is asking for attention. Many ignore these messages until they become louder, until the body's whisper becomes a call. Illness, in this sense, is not merely an event but a conversation. The more we learn to listen, the gentler the lessons become. Awareness transforms our relationship with the body, from control to cooperation. It reminds us that self-care is not indulgence but responsibility, the conscious tending of a living system that depends on balance. This awareness is both biological and spiritual, for to listen deeply to the body is to listen to life itself. The body also teaches resilience, the quiet strength that grows not from perfection but from adaptation. Muscles strengthen by recovering from strain, bones rebuild through stress. The immune system learns through exposure. Even when disease disrupts these processes, the principle remains the same. Life responds to challenge by evolving. Every recovery, no matter how small, is evidence of this capacity. Resilience does not mean invulnerability. It means flexibility, the ability to bend and not break. In chronic illness, resilience takes on a new meaning. It becomes the capacity to find peace even when pain persists, to continue moving within limitation, to discover meaning in persistence itself. The body teaches us that survival is not only a physical act but a state of mind, a form of courage that continues quietly day after day. Another lesson the body imparts is interconnection. No system functions in isolation. The joints depend on muscles for movement. The muscles depend on nerves for guidance. The nerves depend on blood for nourishment. And the blood depends on the heart's steady rhythm. A single imbalance in one area can ripple through the whole, reminding us that unity is not abstraction but reality. When inflammation affects the joints, fatigue follows. When pain interrupts sleep, the immune system suffers. When emotions tighten the body, muscles ache and breathing shortens. To heal one aspect, we must consider all. This is why modern medicine increasingly embraces holistic approaches, seeing the body as an ecosystem rather than a machine. The lesson extends beyond physiology. It is the same in human relationships, in communities, in nature itself. Harmony depends on understanding how everything connects, how every part contributes to the whole. Through its vulnerabilities, the body teaches compassion. To experience pain is to understand the pain of others. Those who have felt limitation develop a gentleness that comes from empathy. Illness softens the heart, stripping away the illusion of control and revealing the shared fragility of life. This compassion extends outward, often transforming relationships, work, and perspective. The body, in its imperfection, becomes a bridge between individuals, reminding us that what we share is greater than what divides us. The lesson of compassion, learned through the body, becomes a universal language, a way of relating that transcends words and diagnoses. The body also teaches humility. Despite all that science has uncovered, much of its wisdom remains mysterious. Why one person heals quickly while another struggles. Why inflammation flares without warning. Why some tissues regenerate while others scar. These are questions that defy full explanation. This uncertainty invites humility, the recognition that knowledge is vast but incomplete. In accepting this, both patient and physician learn to approach the body not as something to be conquered, but as something to be understood and respected. This humility fosters trust, the trust that even in disorder, there is an underlying intelligence at work, an ancient rhythm that seeks equilibrium in its own way. Equally important is the lesson of presence. The body exists only in the now. It cannot live in the past or anticipate the future. It can only breathe, circulate, and move in this moment. Chronic illness, by its nature, often brings one back to the present. Plans may change, energy may waver, but the moment remains tangible. Awareness of breath, of sensation, of posture, becomes a meditation on being alive. This is not resignation but awakening. When we inhabit the body fully, without judgment, we begin to feel the texture of life more deeply, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the comfort of rest, the flow of breath that connects inside and outside. The body, ever rooted in the present, reminds us that this moment is enough. The body teaches balance through contrast. We learn the value of ease by knowing discomfort, the importance of rest by experiencing fatigue, the sweetness of movement by enduring stiffness. In health, we often overlook the quiet miracle of function, the effortless bending of a joint, the silent coordination of muscles. Illness brings awareness back to these fundamentals. It invites gratitude for every small act the body performs. A simple stretch, the lifting of a cup, the turning of the head, each becomes a moment of wonder. Gratitude itself becomes medicine, shifting the chemistry of the mind and body, lowering stress, and enhancing immunity. The body teaches us that gratitude is not an emotion but a state of alignment, a harmony between awareness and appreciation. Another profound lesson lies in impermanence. The body changes constantly. Nothing remains fixed. Cells die, bones remodel, scars fade, and pain transforms. To cling to what was to a body that once moved without effort is to create suffering. To accept impermanence is to live peacefully within change. This is not fatalism but flow, the recognition that life renews itself through letting go. The body models this perfectly, shedding and rebuilding without resistance. In this sense, The body becomes a metaphor for existence itself, teaching us that to live fully is to participate in the ceaseless dance of transformation. In the end, the body's greatest lesson is love, not the romantic or idealized kind, but a deep, steady care for what is. To love the body is to listen to it, to honor its needs, to forgive its limitations, and to appreciate its endurance. This love is not vanity but gratitude, a recognition of the miracle of being alive within form. When we approach the body with this tenderness, healing occurs on many levels. The nervous system relaxes, stress hormones decrease, and inflammation softens. Love, in this sense, is both emotion and biology, a state of coherence that aligns the mind, heart, and tissues in harmony. Through the study of rheumatology, we come to see that every system of the body mirrors a universal truth. The joints teach flexibility, the bones stability, the muscles action, the connective tissues unity. The immune system teaches vigilance, but also the danger of excess. The body is both fragile and strong, temporary and timeless, vulnerable yet endlessly regenerative. It teaches us that health is not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to adapt gracefully to it. To listen to these lessons is to live more consciously, to move with reverence, to see the sacred in the ordinary, in the quiet pulse beneath the skin, in the rise and fall of breath, in the resilience of healing. The body speaks. Its voice is ancient, steady, and wise. When we learn to hear it, life itself becomes clearer, softer, deeper, more complete. The body, our first and final teacher, reminds us of what we have known all along, that within the living form lies not only biology, but understanding, compassion, and peace. And in that harmony of learning and living, the body and the self become one, the lesson and the learner, the endless journey, the quiet continuation of life. As we reach the final chapter of this long and gentle exploration, we arrive not at an ending, but at a return. The story of rheumatology, and indeed of the body itself, does not conclude. It circles back upon itself, always unfolding, always continuing. Every heartbeat, every slow renewal of tissue, every act of repair and adaptation is part of a continuous rhythm that does not stop. It is the rhythm of life persisting through change, of strength revealing itself through flexibility, of stillness emerging from motion. What began as a study of joints and connective tissue has expanded into something much larger, a meditation on existence, on the quiet resilience that sustains all living things. The human body, in its fragile brilliance, becomes both the subject and the symbol of this continuity. The endless journey begins in the smallest details. Within each cell, molecular processes carry out their work with silent precision. Proteins fold, signals pass, membranes breathe. The body does not need instruction. It remembers how to live. Even in illness, this intelligence endures. When inflammation rises, the immune system acts not from malice, but from confusion, trying, in its way, to protect. When joints swell, when tissues ache, the body is not betraying us. It is responding, adapting, communicating that balance has been lost. Healing, then, is not the suppression of this voice, but the re-education of it, a return to dialogue. Every therapy, every act of care, and even when the balance is imperfect, the intention remains to continue, to endure, to find peace within motion. This continuity also extends through time, far beyond the boundaries of an individual life. The biological patterns that shape us are older than humanity itself. The structure of collagen, the mechanics of muscle contraction, the chemistry of inflammation. These are inheritances from ancient life forms that survived through adaptation. When we move, when we heal, we are participating in a lineage that began long before memory, an unbroken thread that runs through evolution. Each body is both unique and universal, a temporary arrangement of energy and matter that carries the story of life forward. In this way, rheumatology, though rooted in science, becomes a contemplation of ancestry, a recognition that our struggles with motion, pain, and renewal are part of a timeless continuum shared by all living things. There are moments of clarity and comfort, followed by setbacks and fatigue. Yet within this rhythm lies a profound beauty, the steady pulse of life continuing despite imperfection. The body learns to adapt, the mind learns to soften, and together they create a new kind of harmony, one that is not defined by the absence of pain, but by the presence of awareness. Each flare of inflammation, each period of rest, becomes part of a greater movement, a dance of effort and ease that mirrors the balance of nature itself. The endless journey, then, is not one of destination but of participation. It is the willingness to remain engaged with life, even in its complexity, even when comfort ebbs and flows. As science advances, the understanding of rheumatologic diseases deepens, and with it, our appreciation for the body's subtle intelligence. We now know that the immune system communicates through intricate networks of signaling molecules, that cartilage renewal depends on microscopic forces of pressure and motion, that even the act of gentle stretching can alter cellular function. These discoveries remind us that every gesture matters, that the simplest acts, breathing deeply, walking slowly, resting fully, carry healing potential. Medicine evolves through this awareness, moving away from pure intervention toward partnership. The physician becomes a guide, the patient a participant, and the body itself the central wisdom. Healing is not imposed. It is invited, encouraged through alignment rather than force. The endless journey is also emotional and spiritual. Living with a chronic condition often reshapes one's understanding of meaning. It strips away what is unnecessary, leaving a clearer sense of what truly nourishes. Many discover that peace is not found in the return to a former state, but in the acceptance of the present one. Gratitude grows from small victories, a morning without pain, a walk without stiffness, a deep breath taken freely. Over time, this gratitude expands into something larger, a quiet reverence for the body's endurance, for the simple fact of being alive. It is here, in this reverence, that the human spirit and the science of medicine meet. For the purpose of medicine is not only to extend life, but to illuminate it, to remind us of its depth, its fragility, and its grace. In reflection, we begin to see that the study of rheumatology is not only about pathology, but about harmony. It explores what happens when connection falters, when the immune system forgets its boundaries, when tissues lose coordination, when motion turns to stiffness. Yet by understanding these imbalances, we come to see what health truly is, not perfection, but cooperation. The body in health is a quiet orchestra, each part contributing its tone in service of the whole. Disease, then, is not silence but discord, a temporary loss of synchrony. Treatment, in turn, is the process of tuning, of helping the body remember its original music. Sometimes the song changes, becoming slower or softer, beautiful in its own way. This understanding leads naturally to compassion not only for others but for oneself. To live in a body is to be both powerful and vulnerable. Every human shares this paradox. We are capable of extraordinary endurance and yet dependent on the most delicate balance. Illness reveals this truth in ways that health often conceals. It strips away the illusion of control and replaces it with intimacy, a renewed awareness of life's fragility and wonder. Compassion grows from this awareness. It is the recognition that every person, regardless of circumstance, carries their own invisible symphony of struggles and strengths. In this shared fragility lies the foundation of empathy, the gentle understanding that unites us beyond words. Even as knowledge deepens and treatments improve, the mystery of the body endures. Science can describe processes, measure changes, and map pathways, but it cannot capture the essence of life itself, the quiet consciousness that animates the cells, the inexplicable sense of self that experiences joy, pain, and hope. This mystery does not diminish the value of knowledge, it completes it. The greatest physicians and healers throughout history have known that medicine is most effective when it honors both the measurable and the ineffable. To treat the body without acknowledging the spirit is to see only half the truth. In the continuity of this understanding, the story of rheumatology becomes a metaphor for life. Just as the joints must remain both strong and flexible, so must we. Just as the connective tissue binds and supports, so too must we nurture the bonds that connect us to one another. And just as the body renews itself endlessly through cycles of rest and motion, so must the mind and heart renew themselves through reflection and kindness. Health, in its truest sense, is not a fixed state but a practice, a continual return to balance in an ever-changing world. As this reflection draws to a close, we return once more to the image of motion, the quiet turning of joints, the soft pulse of blood, the slow renewal of tissue in sleep. These movements, unnoticed but constant, are life's way of continuing without end. Even when pain appears, even when fatigue settles, the body's underlying rhythm persists, loyal and patient. To listen to this rhythm is to feel the continuity of being, the endless journey that moves through all forms, through all times. The science of rheumatology, when seen through this lens, is not only the study of disease, but the study of endurance, of connection, of the eternal dialogue between motion and rest. In the end, we learn that nothing in the body, nor in life, is truly separate. Every movement is part of a greater motion, every breath part of a larger rhythm. The journey never ends, it transforms, flowing from one state to another, from youth to age, from illness to healing, from stillness to motion once again. The quiet continuation of life is the greatest mystery and the greatest comfort. Within it, every cell, every thought, every act of care participates in something infinite, and when we rest at last, the rhythm continues elsewhere, in others, in the world, in the ceaseless pulse of existence. The body, ever our teacher and companion, reminds us of this truth, that to live is to move within eternity, endlessly renewing, endlessly becoming, endlessly alive.